Hi, welcome back, everyone. This is your friend Greedy Fanfics, bringing you another fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the first part of What If Deku Found a Cat Aizawa. All credit for this story goes to Soup4 2000, so please support them by checking out the link in the description for more details. Don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more content like this. Now, let's get into the fanfic. Aizawa was not intending to spend his night as a cat. The day started normally enough. Hisashi woke him with the smell of an American breakfast and a steaming pot of coffee. After eating, Aizawa reluctantly changed out of his bright pink sweatpants and into his hero costume. He took the train to UA and enjoyed the solitude of his empty classroom. He expelled all of his students already. They barely even lasted 2 weeks. Unfortunately, his lack of a class meant that Niza could shovel shit tons of paperwork onto him, so Aizawa spent the workday reading over, sorting, and signing papers. He was stuck as a paper pusher until he could begin the whole re-enrollment process. Aizawa was tired and unsure if he was capable of reading a single sentence more by the time he was ready to head home. He took the train again, ate an instant ramen pack for dinner. Hisashi would surely murder him for it later, and began his hero patrols. The patrol, much like the rest of his day, was normal enough. And then, the mugger he was working to apprehend had a quirk awakening. From what Aizawa had gathered, the guy had the ability to mimic animals and shape-shift parts of his body. He'd been panicking, swiping a pair of tiger claws through the air, and when he sensed that jail was imminent, his quirk evolved as a last-ditch effort to escape. And Aizawa's clothes all fell to the floor. Luckily, nobody witnessed his indecency, because Aizawa had 4 paws and a tail. And that is how he ended up wandering the city nightlife as a feline creature, with no idea how to get home, or when he turned back into a human. He made a few attempts already to hiss and paw at police officers, but they either shooed him off or tried to offer him scratches. Aizawa bared his teeth at both options. The buildings around him were unrecognizable. He'd strayed too far from his patrol route earlier, and when you're only a foot tall, signs are much harder to read. So basically, Aizawa is fucked. His plan A is to continue meandering the city in hopes of finding someone who can communicate with him, or who knows him personally, unlikely. Plan B is to wait out the quirk curled up into a little ball. Aizawa ditches Plan A. He's cold. Luckily, the alley next to a high-end barbecue restaurant has warm air blowing out from the kitchen. There's the yelling of, "Order up!" and "Pick up!" from the restaurant staff and the clanging of pots and pans, but someone's abandoned a baby blanket right by an open window. Aizawa decides to settle for the night. He won't do any good if he's tired. The blanket is soft and pillowy. It's perfect. Until it's not. "Oi, kid!" someone says behind him, and for a second Aizawa disregards the voice because there's no way it's actually talking to him. But then there's a hulking mass standing before him, fur puffed up and eyes glowing yellow. "This ain't your alley," the cat says. She has a striped coat, but it's matted and some patches are missing, revealing slivers of scars. The area above her eyebrow is all gnarled skin, and one ear is clipped, twitching uselessly. "Your mama ever teach you manners?" Oh, Aizawa realizes. He can understand other cats now. His new tiny cat brain can comprehend the little twitches and shifts, the clicks of her tongue, and the hunch of her shoulders as language. He wonders what his cats would sound like, Focus and Sailor all alone at home, but that thought doesn't last long because Scarface hisses. "Well, don't you look pretty?" Scarface circles him, and Aizawa isn't quite sure what to do in this predicament. "Your coat is shiny. You got someone petting you at home? Housecat, what are you doing out here?" Aizawa gets the feeling that he's being sized up. "Does your owner clean up your shit for you?" Scarface cackles. "Is Kitty Woody lost in the scary city?" It's then that Aizawa realizes it isn't just Scarface. There are dozens of eyes peeking out from the shadows. They glow in the dark, several floating circles of territorial anger. He's surrounded, with Scarface blocking the mouth of the alley and the rest of his crew lingering in the darkness, ready to pounce if he so much as breathes wrong. Being a cat is not as fun as he thought it would be. he thinks as he makes a mad dash to slip past Scarface, more instinctively than logically. A claw lands on his snout, and with the hiss of 1,000 rattlesnakes there are 3 more upon his back. Definitely not as fun. And that, my friends, is how Aizawa Shouta got jumped by a horde of felines. It's high school all over again. But unlike high school, he has no home to return to. He's sure his apartment is safe and sound, bolted shut with way too many locks, but his keys are in his pocket, and his pocket is across the city. Aizawa limps past the convenience store, the blood from the great jumping of the alley cats beginning to crust and make his fur mat. The multitude of scratches across his everywhere protested with every step, and he's sure that he doesn't look much like a house cat anymore. He needs a game plan. The city has proven itself to be unsafe, dare he say even more unsafe than as a human, with high drops and traffic threatening his every moment. If someone isn't about to step on him, he's being cursed at. He discovers that there is a slur for stray cats, by mice and other critters from the safety of their crawl spaces. What's even worse is the cooing. At least a dozen people had stopped to bend down and try to pet him or assess his injuries, only to act surprised when he hissed a warning. "Aren't you a cutie?" A waitress on her smoke break had purred, crouching down to her ankles. But what happened to you? Did the other kitties bully you?" "Daw hee hee." Aizawa is never baby-talking his cats again. In the late night/early morning blackness, streetlights cut yellow spotlights into the street, casting even harsher shadows over the sidewalks where trash bins and mailboxes sat. The neon sign of a tattoo parlor flickered, on and off, despite the sign flipped over the door reading, "Closed." The convenience store's fluorescent lighting leaked from its windows, weakened through thin layers of newspaper clippings and ads. The convenience store isn't high-end by any means. The walls are gritty and the trash can sitting by the door is overflowing. Aizawa can barely hear trashy music playing from a speaker inside. It's a song he recognizes. Hisashi used to play it all of the time. "Have a nice night, Abe sir." A bell tinkles above him, and the automatic doors of the store make an unholy sound as they slide open. The smell of cheap cleaning wipes and microwaved meals seeps out in waves. And then someone's tripping on him. Oh Lord dash! It's all Aizawa can do to keep the ᴡᴇ'ʟ from escaping his mouth. His probably sprained leg is white hot with pain. Ouchie. The person who has tripped over him, fucking idiot, I'll skin them, stumbles but is quick to correct themselves, sputtering in surprise. They turn, and in the darkness they're hard to make out, but Aizawa thinks he sees a head of untamed curls and wide eyes. They're wearing a Gakurin. The uniform is recognizable enough for his blurry little cat eyes. A student then? But why outside so late? And still in uniform? What did oh! The student, a boy on the shorter and slimmer side, finally spots him. Aizawa gives his meanest glare, glued to the concrete by his injured leg. "Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry." What the man isn't expecting is for the boy to kneel to his side, hands flailing as if to touch him, but then pulling away and wiping them on his uniform shirt in a fidgeting frenzy. The boy apologizes profusely, to what he thinks is a stray cat. This kid's either really weird or on crack cocaine. "Oh no, you're hurt." Okay, that looks painful. And fresh." Oh no. Goodness." The kid mumbles, eyebrows pinched in concern. He really does look crazy, on his knees and rambling to a cat. "Okay." Curls finally takes a deep breath in. And out. It's practiced. He must panic like that often. He stands, and Aizawa thinks he's just going to leave, but then Curls points a stern finger at him, a non-threatening frown on his face. "Stay there! I'll be right back." Curls runs back into the convenience store. Aizawa is left confused, bamboozled, and in the middle of a sidewalk. And then, Curls emerges once again, but this time he's holding in one hand a pair of crisp, white, new bandages. And this is all very confusing, you see. Aizawa has had a long day, a very long, tiring day, and mostly he just wants for it to be over, even if that means leaving his wounds untreated. He wants to nap. He wants his husband. He also really wants to fucking nap. The street is empty at this time and in this neighborhood, so Curls settles himself against the concrete wall of the convenience store just a few feet from Aizawa and sets down his newly acquired bandages. He digs around in his pockets for a second and pulls out a granola bar. Then he unwraps it, breaks it into cat-sized chunks, and rolls a piece over. Aizawa glares at the granola bar. Then at the boy. Then he lowers his eyes back down to the granola bar. The granola bar that's looking really sexy right now. The boy who's picking at his nails, waiting patiently. The granola bar. You'd best believe that Aizawa nearly snorted that shit. It didn't have much of a taste, but goddamn did that one chunk satiate the rumbling in his stomach. He didn't even notice when the boy slid over the remaining granola chunks, too busy getting used to the feeling of chewing with sharp little teeth, but when he did he wolfed those down too. A minute and a half later, Aizawa is a less grumpy cat. I hope that helps, Curls murmurs, toying with the fraying hem of his jacket. I don't really have anything else food-wise on me. But, if you'll let me. The boy picks up his bandages and carefully tears one of the rolls from its packaging. Despite how odd it must be from an outsider's perspective, Aizawa is grateful that this kid is talking to him like any other human, even if he doesn't quite look the part. After a full day of cooing and or angry shooing noises directed at him, he's happy to have a one-sided conversation. Seeing the boy holding out his hands, palms up with a roll of bandages in his left, Aizawa gets the message. He lets it happen, because even though his pride has practically taken a fatal wound, his logical side reasons that he's in a weakened state, and should take any help he can get. Curls knows what he's doing. He's careful not to surround or overwhelm Aizawa at any point, and even though Aizawa is actually a person, meaning Curls doesn't need the preventative stray cat measures, he appreciates the apprehension and kindness in this young boy. Ow. It looks like you got into a tussle, HM? I get it. I get into tussles too, but I don't really mean to. Maybe you're the same way. Curls mumbles. A troublemaker, huh? Can I see your leg? Aizawa doesn't struggle when he examines his leg, prodding it and twisting it gently to see what he reacts negatively to. One particularly ungentle poke gets him a hiss, and Curls shrinks. I know, I'm sorry. Don't apologize, kid, Aizawa sighs. This just sucks. 3 minutes later, Aizawa is bandaged comfortably yet snugly, and he feels more like a mummy than he usually does. I think your leg is sprained. It might take a little while to heal. Curls packs up his materials into an ugly yellow backpack, but Aizawa has an ugly yellow sleeping bag, so who is he to judge? I think I'm going to take you home and give you a warm bed, and then try to find a good shelter for you. Aizawa wants to object at first, wants to run away, but then he recognizes the opportunity. If this kid can get him back into the city, he'll be able to find Yue. He could also try to use the kid's computer or something to type an email to his superiors. Even if an opportunity doesn't present itself and Aizawa gets stuck in a shelter, he'll have a warm bed and food until he can figure out what to do, or until the quirk wears off. Considering all of these options, he doesn't try to scramble off when Curls very carefully slips his arms under him and brings him to his chest. Frankly, this is real fucking embarrassing, but the pros outweigh the cons right now. Aizawa's sure that if he had a human face it'd be twisted into a frustrated scowl and quirk-enhanced glare, but for now, all he can do to express his displeasure with the whole situation by flexing his claws. Curls doesn't mind. He takes it in stride, adjusting Aizawa in his arms, and starts down the sidewalk. He's muttering under his breath as he walks, a couple miscellaneous things about homework and dinner. The scenery passes in a blur. It's all just concrete and filled in windows for a while, graffitied urban sprawl. Aizawa yearns to sleep, more than he's ever yearned, and it must be the cat instincts that have seemed to stick to him. But Aizawa forces himself to stay conscious, memorize the route, every twist and turn that Curls takes into a residential, albeit rundown, area. The night is quiet. There's the whiz of cars in the distance and of crickets spread sparse through the darkness. A raccoon scuttles under a porch. A train rumbles somewhere far off. Aizawa thought that getting kidnapped would be less peaceful, Curls speaks softly when he breaks the quiet. My name is Izuku, Curls says. He scratches the indentation between Aizawa's ears with one finger, and yeesh, that feels better than a massage. The name suits him. And then he's climbing a set of stairs to an apartment complex. It's a bumpy ride, and Aizawa counts each stair to keep himself focused on anything other than falling asleep. And then they're standing at an unpainted wooden door, 406. Please be quiet when we go inside. Izuku shifts Aizawa so that he can reach into his pocket and pull out his house keys. I don't think Mama is home, but if she sees you then. Izuku's suddenly fearful tone makes Aizawa's concern flare. Then I'll be in trouble. Or something. Izuku shrugs, then he opens the door slowly. Slowly, so slowly it barely creaks, and then he peeks into the dark apartment for several seconds before deeming it safe enough to tiptoe inside. And boy, does that make Aizawa's teacher instincts flare up even more. There's no lights on, but with enhanced cat eyes, Aizawa can see the barren space in front of him easily. Its emptiness rivals his apartment, which is impressive considering he's a minimalist at best and doesn't even live there half of the time at worst. The only place with evidence that this house is inhabited at all is the living room. There's empty beer bottles, half-empty beer bottles, crushed beer bottles, shattered vodka bottles, empty vodka bottles. The apartment fucking reeks of alcohol. Aizawa looks a little closer, now. The sink is nearly overflowing with dishes. The trash can is stuffed to the brim. There's something brown splattered across the hallway closet's door. The carpet is hiding a big stain that peeks out from its edges. Fuck. She's not home. Izuku breathes, and Aizawa knows without a doubt that this boy is a victim of some sort of domestic violence. As a pro hero, he's seen it way too many fucking times, and every time it hurts just a little bit more. One more crack in his heart every time he sees the outcome of a hurt child. He doesn't want to admit it. Doesn't want to think it. But the splatter on the closet door is most definitely old blood, and the stain under the carpet reeks the same scent of copper. Now, this moment when Aizawa enters Izuku's apartment for the first time is the exact moment that Aizawa's goals shift. It's the moment that his top priority goes from get home to Hisashi to keep the kid as safe as he can. Izuku doesn't notice his internal dilemma. He walks down the hallway, his footsteps eerily silent even with shoes on, and shoulders open the door to his room. It's as bare as the rest of the house, but on his homework-cluttered desk there are a few All Might figurines and there's a colorful quilt sprawled on his mattress. Welcome to my humble abode, kitty. Izuku sets him down to explore, closing the door behind him and setting his backpack, shoes, and jacket next to his desk. I'm sorry it's cramped, but you'll probably have to stay in here until I can find a shelter for you, Aizawa says. It's okay. I'll live. But it comes out as a meow. Izuku smiles. Aizawa decides that his smile is a heartwarming thing. Luckily, tomorrow is Saturday, so you won't be alone. I'll check all the local places and see if they can fit you in. The boy reaches into his chest of drawers and withdraws a pair of jeans, basketball shorts, and 3 shirts. Aizawa is confused what he's going to do with those, but then he starts folding the clothes and setting them down next to his bed in a pile. Izuku's making him a bed. He gathers the sheet from his bed, which had been crumpled at the edge of the mattress, and used it to keep the clothes together. A makeshift pillow and pillowcase. When he's finished, he pats the pile down and steps away. I hope this is comfortable enough. He sits down in the chipping wooden chair at his desk. If Mama comes home tomorrow, I'll have to move it under my bed. I'm sorry. It's okay, Aizawa says again. It comes out as a meow again. I'll live. Izuku starts working on his homework after that. Aizawa takes this time to explore the tiny bedroom that he's been sealed to. The soft glow from the desk lamp makes the room look warmer, makes the popcorn walls cast little dot shadows. The bed takes up most of the room's space, and the remainder of that space is used up by the more tall than wide chest of drawers and the wobbly desk that Izuku is currently hunched over. Other than those 3 pieces of furniture, there are scarce decorations and even scarcer personal items. The only personality this bedroom has is the patterned quilt and the cheap hero figurines. The horror of the apartment had made Aizawa's adrenaline spike, but now he's more disappointed than surprised, and the exhaustion of the day is crashing back onto him. The scratches along his back still sting, and he's limping off of his injured leg. "I'm going to bed now," Aizawa informs Izuku, and the boy barely looks up, too engrossed in his work to hear the tiny meow. "You'd better get some sleep, too. I see those eye bags." Izuku spares him a glance and a quirk of the lips, then he's back to writing. Aizawa sighs and hobbles his way to the makeshift bed. His hope in the new generation is slightly restored when he sees the lumps of clothes and sheets, and curls up atop it. Aizawa's been kidnapped by a teenage boy. Aizawa's a cat. He doesn't know when he'll get to go home. Hizashi's probably unleashing all hell upon his coworkers. The bed's not the comfiest thing per se, but it works. It's warm and lying on his cuts alleviates some of the pain via pressure, and he'll figure things out in the morning. And Aizawa's eyes are already falling, and yep, he's definitely falling asleep. When Aizawa wakes up the next morning, it's because Izuku is gently lifting him into his arms. "Good morning," Izuku says. "We're going to find a shelter today." If Izuku had said this a day earlier, Aizawa would have been ecstatic. There was a chance that he could use the staff or other cats there to help him, but now he's wary, because the stench of alcohol is present even with Izuku's bedroom door closed, and there's an even bigger chance that when Aizawa is freed from the quirk he's under he's never going to see Izuku again. Another person I can't save. I won't let another Oboro slip through my fingers. I think there's one a few blocks down. The boy toes on his shoes, bulky and a little too big on him. He was wearing a plain, long-sleeved white t-shirt and basketball shorts that pulled the waistband string taut. Then he pulls open his bedroom door, quietly, carefully, and doesn't even flinch at the smell that hits them. Aizawa curls tighter into himself. His cat nose really hates this place. Only once the two are outside the apartment does Aizawa relax. The aura inside of it is heavy, crushing down even though Mama isn't even home. Now let's get one thing straight. Aizawa is not glad that he's been kidnapped. If he really wanted to, he could escape the kid right now. He could leap from his arms and run for the hills, except his leg is still sprained and his torso still aches, and Aizawa is a persistent man who is going to wait out this dilemma as long as he can. Okay. He'll say it, he'll fucking say it, being pet feels nice. Izuku is anxious when he walks along the sidewalk. His shoulders are rising to his neck and he's curling around Aizawa. Whether it's to protect him from rowdy passers-by or because he's trying to appear smaller, Aizawa doesn't know, but he doesn't appreciate it nonetheless. When someone talks too loud on the phone or at another person, his eyes immediately dart to them and his upper body stays stock still until he and the loud person are several feet away. When someone tries to sell him a slip of paper or an advertisement, he basically treats them like the plague, paling and skittering away. Aizawa is analytical. He's not stupid, and he's not heartless. So he presses his head against Izuku's chest, nuzzles it and presses biscuits. The motion comes instinctively, even though he had only really meant to apply a little bit of pressure on his limbs, into Izuku's arms. Izuku falters, shoulders loosening, and gives Aizawa a quirk of the lips and a softly knitted brow. Win. He's considerably less anxious now, with Aizawa keeping him anchored via biscuits as they travel, which is very much a good thing because his grip is no longer suffocating. His eyes still flit from place to place, person to person, but it's lessened. That's better. Aizawa smirks smugly to himself. And Hisashi says he's bad with kids. He promptly ignores the memory of a little girl bursting out into tears, followed by a meltdown, immediately after laying eyes on him. It's a nice Saturday out. The sun hasn't breached over the buildings yet, and there's a chilly autumn breeze that sweeps the streets. Where the sun does spill out from alleyways and shorter buildings, it's warm on his skin. It's not a calm morning, people are rushing to work all around them, but it is nice. The first shelter that Izuku takes him to that morning lets them down easy. The woman at the front desk has a mutation quirk that gives her skin patches of scales across her face and arms. When she notices them, it's after a forked tongue slips past her closed lips and retreats back into her mouth. She smiles at Izuku, pushing away from her computer to gesture that she's not busy. Hi. Izuku approaches the desk she's situated behind. There's a sign above her head that reads ᴡᴇʟᴜ Animal Shelter. I'm all the way in ᴡᴇʟ? Great. Aizawa realizes that he is a little more screwed than he initially thought. I was wondering. Christ, that's a bad stutter. Yikes, kid. Izuku takes a short moment to collect himself and lifts Aizawa a bit. Aizawa stares straight at the snake woman, who's a little surprised at the eye contact. Do you have any available spots? F for a cat. Izuku taps his thumb nervously. It's a little annoying considering his thumb is resting on his back, but Aizawa doesn't stop him. I found this stray yesterday. Yeah? Snake woman frowns. She already knows the answer, but she squints her slitted eyes in a smile anyway. It's a grade A pity smile. I'll check. Snake woman checks her computer. Izuku waits very nervously while she click-clacks away, browsing whatever database is set up on it. Sorry, kid, she grimaces. We're all full here. But I know a good shelter farther downtown that I can recommend you? Oh, Izuku blinks. Yes, please. Aizawa hasn't broken eye contact with the woman once. He thinks it's a little funny that she clearly finds it unsettling. Snake woman pulls a sticky note from a drawer in her desk and uses a pen with one of those pink, fuzzy pom-poms at the end to write something down. She slides the note to Izuku, who picks it up so gingerly it might as well have been a bomb. Aizawa can't read it, but he presumes that the name and address of her recommended shelter is written there. Okay. The teenager exhales shakily. Thank you, ma'am. It's no problem at all, kid. Snake woman waves, pity smile still plastered up, but it seems a little more genuine. Aizawa supposes that the kid's timid and polite nature does that to people. You have a nice day here? Not many kids as good as you nowadays. You too, ma'am. Izuku waves and offers her a shy smile before booking it. It all goes downhill from there. Izuku has to take a train to the next shelter, and he has to hide Aizawa in his ragged old messenger's bag for half the trip. It's not very comfortable, accompanied in an old bag with pens and scrap pieces of plastic, but when Izuku releases him he's murmuring a slew of apologies. It's hard to stay mad at him. Sorry, buddy. The tattooed guy at the next shelter and his intern both look ashamed. They'd gone through the trouble of checking every single cage that they had in the building, but none were empty and all of the cats that could be housed together were housed together. They explained that there was a storm forecasted to come in from the east, and all of the shelters in the area were rushing to get strays to a safe place. The intern explained that all of the places in his area were overcrowded too, and that Izuku's best bet was just to keep Aizawa until the storm blew over. Aizawa had heard about the storm, had heard the forecaster warning of it a week earlier, but he forgot about the damn thing until now. He didn't know if he was incredibly lucky or incredibly unlucky. Izuku tried 3 more shelters. He spent the rest of the day traveling to neighboring towns, and even tried to ask some of the volunteers and employees at shelters if they could take Aizawa. He'd feel a little offended if he didn't know about the state of his house. But no dice. Izuku had to go home in the evening disappointed and exhausted, cat still tucked in his arms. Surely they were tired by now. Aizawa felt guilty, even though he knew that realistically he couldn't have done anything. The kid spent his day's cash on bus fare, and when he tried to check out an instant meal from a cheap convenience store, he didn't even get to the register before realizing that he didn't have the money. They were sitting on a park bench now, back in ᴡᴇʟᴜ. The sun, which had been so gentle in the morning, now left the pavement below them hot. It was starting to cool down again thankfully, the star descending behind the cover of trees to cast long shadows across the ground. A trail of leaves brushed past them, carried by an evening wind that made Izuku's clothes flutter. Aizawa sat next to him, loafing with his side pressed into the boy's thigh. He couldn't say that he was that tired considering he'd been carried almost all day. When he tried to walk alongside the boy, he'd nearly get crushed or simply couldn't keep pace with his injured leg. Well, that sucked, Izuku summarized. And Mama's probably home now. Ah. Shit. I don't want to leave you. He rested a hand on Aizawa's spine. But last time we had a dog, she. Aizawa didn't want him to finish that sentence. I dunno. And then Izuku was crying. Ah shit times two. Suddenly, Aizawa wasn't so sure of his child-comforting abilities. The tears only came harder when Aizawa crawled into his lap and curled up there, tail thumping rhythmically. I don't know. I can't leave you. You're hurt. You won't get far with that leg. Oh Cammy, I don't know. Aizawa can't listen to this anymore. He stands up on his two hind legs, balancing on Izuku's stomach, and puts his paws on the kid's cheeks. He's freckled, Aizawa realizes. Yeah, that's a lot of damn freckles, but they're stained with tears, and that's gotta stop. Izuku stops crying, and Aizawa likes to think that it's because of his amazing skills rather than just the shock of the situation. You're gonna be fine, he says. It's all gonna be fine. I promise. Izuku doesn't understand, but there are no more tears, so it's okay. You're a silly cat. Yes, I'm a silly fucking cat, laugh it up, Aizawa sasses. He takes advantage of the fact that he is, in fact, not speaking a human language. Little asshole. Izuku sniffles, bringing his sleeve up to his eyes and wiping them, lips pursed. Aizawa doesn't have a very good way to scale right now, but the boy is tiny, short, and all skin and bones and pure determination. Aizawa gets off of his haunches because Izuku doesn't look as upset anymore, and his leg was starting to flare up. He doesn't see it, but Izuku's gaze flits from him, to his bag, from him, to his bag. A gust of wind makes Aizawa shiver. Leaves rustle above him. He's fully prepared to doze off, satisfied with his kind act of the day, but then Izuku is grinning and sweeping Aizawa into his arms. Okay, Izuku says, sniffles again, and furrows his brows. You're going to be a good cat and be quiet, calm, and nice, right? What? Aizawa blinks. We're going home. Fluffy. Aizawa hates his new name. Mama won't notice a thing. He pales. Izuku is none the wiser, and despite the shake in his hands, he sets a determined pace in the general direction of one stinky, miserable apartment. With the knowledge that someone was waiting for Izuku inside apartment 406 this time around, Aizawa was, safe to say, tense. Izuku had been murmuring encouragements and little pep talks to himself the entire walk to the apartment and up the stairs. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. She wasn't in a bad mood last time I saw her. We're fine. I love her. Aizawa doubted that last sentence, just a little bit. This time around, he was more awake. The night previous, he'd been exhausted and freshly injured, and the full force of his situation hadn't settled in. He was kidnapped, not only into a random household, but into a potentially abusive one. The night previous, he'd been taken by surprise and a teenager had to take care of him. This time, Aizawa will be prepared for whatever life throws at him. Aizawa is not prepared for whatever life throws at him. Even tucked inside of Izuku's messenger bag, curled into a ball and blanketed in darkness, the sound of her voice makes him shudder. It's familiar, in a way, the slur of her words and the saccharine poison in her tone. Hi Izuku, Mama says. You're home late. Aizawa feels how Izuku stiffens. Feels how he tightens his grip on the strap of his bag. I'm sorry, Mama. I was helping Mrs. Kiba down the street with her groceries. He lies easily. Oh? Mama sounds far away. Even through the bag, through his muffled senses, she sounds far away. Probably tucked into her couch, bottle of vodka in one hand. He can smell it. Don't let it happen again. I won't, Mama. It's dangerous to be outside so late. Especially for people like you. I know, Mama. I'm sorry. There's a beat. Aizawa stays as still as he can, even though he's laying on his hurt leg and it's starting to feel tingly. The atmosphere is tense. It's crushing, it's a hydraulic press and Aizawa is the random object stuck underneath it as it presses down, down. Suffocating, that's the word. I worry for you, Izuku. Mama's voice wobbles in the same way that Izuku's did when he was crying on the park bench. I don't know what I'd do if I lost you. You know that, right? You're my whole world. I love you. The most suffocating thing about all of it is that Izuku believes her. I know. Izuku hasn't moved an inch either. I love you too. Okay, Mama says. Okay. Go to your room. Izuku nearly bolts down the hallway. It's only when his bedroom door closes behind him with a quiet click that the boy heaves a sigh of relief. He's quick to undo the latch on his bag, fumbling with leftover nerves, and Aizawa nearly comes tumbling out from its confines. Sorry, Izuku hisses, whispering. Okay. See? That wasn't so bad. Not at all. Aizawa begs to fucking differ. And since he's going to handle this situation and comfort the kid like a true adult, he strides gracefully towards him. He's limping, and goes to crawl up his arm, because it always lifts Aizawa's mood when Sailor does it to him, but not before Izuku can take him, gently, by the sides and place him on solid ground. Sorry, Fluffy. Aizawa really hates his new name. I'm gonna see if I can take those bandages off. He'll excuse it because the offer sounds very tempting. His scratches had been growing less sore by the hour, and the bandages itchier. So, he was only mildly embarrassed as Izuku unraveled his mummy tape and looked over his spine. You look a lot better, Izuku whispers. No more bandages for you. Sorry, but I don't think I'd be able to afford more even if you did need them. I forgive you, Aizawa decides. Izuku smiles. The boy stands, being very careful to balance his weight so that the floorboards don't creak under his socked feet, and walks over to his chest of drawers. Aizawa gives him privacy to change into pajamas, and when Izuku approaches him a minute or two later with something plastic crinkling in his hands, he perks up. These are from my secret stash. He's holding 2 granola bars, the same brand from the night before. Sorry, but this is our dinner tonight. Okay. That's sad? Aizawa sucks it up. He'll be strong. He'll be this timid, granola bar eating kid's pillar. Over their 5-course meals, Izuku makes conversation. Aizawa's sure that it must be because he's lonely, not even he talks to his cats so normally, and he's a stage 5 shut-in. But despite the cold feeling that envelopes his heart whenever he thinks of Izuku's situation, he appreciates the chit-chat. The curly-haired boy whispers random stories and thoughts between granola bites. He starts out by explaining that the brand of granola bars they're eating are always half off at Abe's convenience store. Whether Abe forgets to change the price or knows that Izuku could use the discount, Izuku doesn't know. The conversation ends with hero ramblings, the hot topic of today's youth. Aizawa is quick to discover that the boy loves quirks. Analyzing them, picking them apart, fanboying over them in general. I think it's so cool that people just started developing the ability to shoot spikes or fly. Wouldn't you like to fly, Fluffy? I would, that's for sure. I'd like to fly as fast as that new hero, Hawks. You know he's quicker than the fastest bird species alive? I calculated it myself, it's amazing. Izuku leans against his bed frame, flailing his arms around. He's careful to keep his volume to a whisper, even when he gets passionate about a subject. Just imagine it. Imagine it. Flying. Freedom. Aizawa can imagine it, barely. He's certainly no Hawks, but night after night he jumps around rooftops, swinging around like Spider-Man via capture weapon. It feels like it's been forever since his last patrol shift. Tomorrow's Sunday. Izuku wrinkles his nose. And then he thinks. The boy brings his hand to his chin and stares contemplatively at the space above Aizawa's head. When he really starts thinking, it's a little scary. His eyes are owlish and unblinking, and Aizawa can almost see the smoke coming from his head. Maybe. Izuku snaps out of his daze and throws his granola bar wrapper into the woven trash bin under his desk. Maybe Kaken would take you. Who? He doesn't really like cats. Well, maybe that's not a good sign. But it'd be better than here. For you. And you, Aizawa adds. But Aunt Natsuki would surely adore you. An aunt? Is Kaken a cousin? Does Zinko have a sister who is completely unaware of what she's doing to her son? And Uncle Masaru would never forget to feed you. No, Aizawa drawls, finishing his last bite of granola. I'm staying here. That's final. Yeah, that would work. Okay. I will skin you if you even think about pawning me off to some other kid. Izuku smiles, a little sadly. He doesn't want to give away his new friend, but he knows that Mama doesn't take well to animals. I'll check in on you. I promise. Aizawa buries his face in the hardwood floor to show his displeasure. Izuku chooses this time to clamber onto his feet and tiptoe to the bedroom door. What are you doing? Aizawa shoots to his own 4 feet, a little too quickly, and follows after him. Where are we going? Sure. Izuku shoots him a displeased look, which doesn't work a lick, and puts a finger to his lips. I have to brush my teeth. Oh. Right. Of course. It feels like a Mission Impossible scene. Going to the bathroom should not be this stressful, but the second Izuku creaks open his bedroom door, Aizawa feels like he's 20 years old again, going on his first big stealth mission. He had to infiltrate a drug trafficking operation and steal a couple of USBs for evidence, and for a second the bathroom looked less like a bathroom and more like a dark red office with a desk in the center, several tiny USBs stacked inside of a plastic baggie sitting innocently on the polished wood. That had also been the first mission Aizawa ever got shot on. Right in the leg by a pistol-wielding bitch. He hears the TV murmuring from the other room. All of the lights in the house are off, except for the lamp in Izuku's bedroom and the television screen all the way down the hall. Colors from its projection dance across the floor, lights stretching all the way to Aizawa's feet before fading into shadow. Every time the light changes a different color, a new scene in whatever movie is on, he tenses a little more. But Izuku has done this millions of times and ignores the ever-present stench of his mother's addiction and walks to the door just across the hallway, a little bit to the left. The blades of his feet touch the floor first, and then the rest of it follows in a roll. Aizawa's dad took him deer hunting when he was 14, and the first thing he taught him was fox walking, a method of moving silently across the forest floor. Izuku fox walks to the bathroom door, and allows Aizawa to slip through before shutting it quietly and flicking on the light. She's probably asleep, Izuku explains to him, and Aizawa jumps up on the toilet seat to get a higher vantage point. Mama sleeps real early most nights. Getting shitfaced does that to you, Aizawa supplies helpfully. Izuku ignores him in favor of getting his teeth cleaned. The bathroom is cramped. The toilet is pressed up against the sink counter, and the sink counter is pressed up against the shower curtain, leaving barely any room for a towel rack. The cracks in the tile are dirty and maybe just a little moldy. The ceramic paint in the bathtub is peeling, making it look almost rusty. Aizawa doesn't judge. Not a single bit. Izuku spits out his toothpaste and wipes the edges of his mouth with a tiny washcloth. Then the two of them Mission Impossible back to his bedroom. And this time Mama's movie is in the middle of an action scene, and an explosion sound effect nearly makes him jump 5 feet in the air. I'm tired, Izuku whispers. Aizawa agrees, and he heads to his makeshift bed while Izuku sits down to do some more schoolwork at his desk. Izuku dims his lamp. Tomorrow, we'll talk to Kaken. Aizawa does not agree. On Sunday, it's Aizawa who wakes up first. The sun hasn't appeared over the horizon yet, and the sound of city bustle is still sleeping. It's dark, but he can see just fine. It's a little off-putting, being able to see every little detail even when he's blanketed in shadows, but Aizawa is grateful. Izuku is asleep, curled up in a fetal position with his back to the room's corner, and face angled right at the door. If he opened his eyes, he'd be able to see the entire room without turning his head. Sighing, Aizawa hops up onto the desk. The motion is instinctively graceful, and he's reminded of his own 2 cats who could always sneak up on him, no matter how alert he was. It must come naturally to them, too. He's about to start batting at an All Might figurine when he sees it. A computer. An open computer. It's the Holy Grail. It's water in the middle of a desert. It's the fucking key. Panicking as if the computer would vanish if he waited too long, Aizawa scrambles to the keyboard and surveys the screen. It's a school-issued Chromebook open to an online math sheet, and Izuku must have forgotten to close it when he went to bed last night. Aizawa is not complaining. The blue light hurts his vision a little, just an ever-present sting behind his eyes, and it takes a long time to figure out how to move the mouse. His nose is too slippery and it's surprisingly hard to use his paws without overshooting, but he figures out that if he uses very slow strokes with the pads of his paw, it works. It's tedious, but it works, and soon enough Aizawa has opened a new tab all on his own. What now? Email. Finding the mail bookmark, Aizawa clicks on it, and the web browser tab loads into an email dashboard. Most of Izuku's emails are unread, but a lot of them are just presets like, "Your assignment, essay analysis and Q+A has been graded," or, "Aldera Middle School announcement, field trip coming soon, sign up now." He also discovers that Izuku's last name is Midoriya. And that's good, because if worst comes to worst he can find Izuku through a police database. Aizawa finds the Compose button. He types in every letter with his nose. His paws are too big to type one individual key, so he has to dip his head down and use his snout as a makeshift hand. To yamadahisashi12@gmail.com. From Izuku, Midoriya.edu@musatafuist. Subject: Kidnapping of your husband. Hisashi. This is Aizawa Shouta. We got married on September 25th, and you drool in your sleep. I was turned into a cat 2 days ago by a mugger with an animal transformation quirk near the Musatafu area. I was then jumped by a couple of stray cats, and a middle schooler, whose computer I am using, took me to his home. I am safe and not in any danger. I will find a way to come home eventually. Thank you. Aizawa. Excitement pooled in Aizawa's gut. Now, Hisashi would know that he was not dead. He may have lied a little bit about the danger part, but Hisashi didn't need to know that. He'd explain everything when he was human again. The send button was so tantalizing. It was right there, blue and ready. Aizawa moved the mouse very carefully to hover over the button, and then... Error, unable to send. Error, unable to send. Error, unable to send. Error, unable to send. What? Error. Well, shit. Aizawa sighed, because he was a teacher and knew that all of the school-issued Chromebooks were on a tight regulation. They can only send emails to people who are registered in their school district. But he can still try other websites. So, Aizawa tried to find Instaglorb and send a DM to Hisashi's personal account. Instaglorb was blocked by a website blocker extension. The extension also blocked Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp. YouTube was unblocked, but Hisashi didn't have a YouTube account. Fucking school regulations. Well, he tried. Izuku stirred in his bed. Aizawa deleted the tab that he opened and meandered innocently away from the computer, as if he never even touched it. Ugh! Izuku blinked, adjusting to the light of his bedroom. The sun had breached a while ago, and since his bedroom's window faced the east, morning rays were streaming into the space like warm spotlights. The boy stretched, yawning, and spotted Aizawa perched on the edge of his desk. Oh. Good morning. Morning. Your computer sucks. Aizawa greets. Izuku takes a few minutes to get dressed and ready for the day, in which Aizawa gives him privacy by staring into a corner. Once that's done, Izuku packs his messenger bag with a jacket. The weather is supposed to be colder today. 2 hero-themed collectible cards. A peace offering for Kaken. And 2 more granola bars, lunch. Aizawa's going to be sick of granola bars. Okay. Izuku kneels down in front of Aizawa and pushes his belongings around in his bag, making room for something. Your turn. Oh. Making room for him. Sorry. Mama's still home. Izuku winces. Don't apologize. Aizawa grumbles, and hops into the bag. Izuku smiles down at him, and then closes it, making sure to leave it loose. Izuku tiptoes down the hallway. The fox walk is ineffective with his clunky shoes, so he just tries to be as slow and careful as he can, making his way to the front door. Izuku. Mama's voice is gravelly and hoarse. Izuku pauses, and then he realizes he's been quiet for too long and swallows. Good morning, Mama. Mama pauses, too. She doesn't talk for a long, tense minute. Where are you going? She asks, and then the couch creaks, and her 2 feet hit the floor. Aizawa can't help how his hair starts to stand on end, how he puffs up inside the bag. He peeks through a little hole in the fabric, made wide enough to see through by age and wear and tear. Mama looks a lot like Izuku. Her hair isn't as curly or thick, it's stringy and greasy, and her eyes aren't wide or curious, they're dead and lidded. But they share the same nose and plump lips, the same chin and freckled cheeks. Their hair is about the same shade too, and he bets that if he could see color they'd only be different tones. She approaches her son. She reeks. Izuku stumbles over his words. I'm going to Kaken's house. Mama blinks. Katsuki? Yeah. We're just going to hang out. Mama tilts her head, and she looks straight at Aizawa. Aizawa fucking freezes. It's a long time before either of them move. It's a long time before Aizawa can feel again. Her eyes are inky black voids, black holes that suck all of the air out of the room, and now he knows why his first thought yesterday when he heard her voice was suffocating. Mama is the first to look away. Okay. Have fun. Izuku doesn't need to be told twice. It's considerably colder outside today than it was yesterday. As soon as he's outside of the apartment complex, he fumbles with the latch to his bag and lets Aizawa pop out. The gust of cold wind that immediately assaults him is enough to make him shiver, from his head all the way to his tail, and Izuku laughs quietly. I haven't really seen Kaken in a while, Izuku explains while they walk to the train station. They take a quieter route, around through neighborhoods and small shopping strips. There's the occasional jogger and grocery shopper, but mostly the morning commuters are taking cars. We used to be really good friends. And then not really good friends. And then, sort of okay friends. Interesting. And then Mama and I had to move, so we don't talk as much. He says it casually, but there's something in the boy's voice, something sadder. The train ride is long and boring. Izuku is staring off into space, the occasional mumble slipping through his days, and Aizawa has 2 paws and his tail sticking from the messenger bag. An older woman with an angular, mutated head is staring at him strangely, blinking in surprise when he meets her gaze. Got a problem, lady? He meows at her. She flushes and turns the other direction. Neighborhoods pass outside the windows. It's a nice view, and Aizawa doesn't get the chance to leave his area outside of patrol often. Seeing these places in the daytime, quaint and lively, reminds him of why he became a hero in the first place. 10, maybe even 15 minutes later, Izuku hears the name of their stop and wobbles to his feet. When they step off the train, Izuku shudders and gently reaches into the space beside Aizawa and pulls out his jacket. Aizawa has to stand, because the sleeve was caught under his belly, and once the jacket is gone he settles back into the bag and props his chin on the edge, staring out at this new city contently. He's never going to judge those little Pomeranians that ladies keep in their purses again. He gets it now. You look comfy, Izuku comments, pulling his arms through the jacket. It's the only one he owns, but it's lined with fake fur and it insulates well. Aizawa predicts that when the first signs of storms start showing in a few days, it'll be hail or snow, and maybe the rainstorm will be turned into a snowstorm if temperatures continues to drop like they are. Izuku knows the route. He strolls past the confectionery, turns right at a resale bookstore, and left at a vinyl shop. Then there are rows of suburban, higher-end houses with neatly cut lawns and sliding front gates. Left past the yard with the orange flowers, right at the intersection with tire tracks stained black on the concrete road, and then they're standing in front of a 2-story, modern home. Izuku clears his throat, pulls on his sleeves, and then rings the doorbell. It's silent for a few beats. Just the shower of an automatic sprinkler 2 yards down, and the songs of a sparrow up above them. And then someone screaming from inside the house, a feminine voice with lots of grit. Katsuki! Get the door! Izuku flinches a little bit, and then he smiles and pats Aizawa's head. That's Auntie. Someone stomps around, and then they get closer to the door with very broadcasted footsteps, and it's a younger and masculine version of Andy's voice. "If this is the bastard with the water bottles, I'll kill you!" Izuku grins. "That's Kaken." Aizawa is not liking first impressions. The door swings open, and the boy in the doorway looks like he's about to burst at the seams with anger. He's taller than Izuku, especially with his blonde hair that spikes up in all directions. It reminds Aizawa of a comic explosion. His eyes are blood red and lidded under furrowed eyebrows, and his lips are twisted into a scowl, and then it drops at the sight of Izuku. Aizawa blinks at the way rage seems to melt away from the boy as soon as he spots curly hair and freckles. It's replaced with something else, now. Kaken's eyes are wide and his shoulders slackened. "Oh, Katsuki," Kaken says. "Hi, Izuku." Aizawa only knows that Izuku stiffens when he hears his name because he's sitting right at his side. "Hi, Kaken." Izuku waves shyly. "Can I come in? Or is now not a good time?" "Izuku baby, is that you?" Suddenly all the tension that had formed between the boys within 2 seconds of interaction comes crashing down. An older, feminine version of Katsuki barrels through the door, or maybe it's the other way around. Katsuki is her, but with more testosterone and shorter hair, and wraps Izuku in a hug so fierce it makes the breath leave his lungs. "Watch it, hag!" "Shut it, brat!" Auntie only whips her head around to scold her son for a second before turning right back around and burying her nose in Izuku's hair. Her tone does a 180 degrees, and she goes from angry hurricane to overbearing mother hen in a millisecond. "Izuku, baby, oh, we miss you. Oh goodness, it's been so long." "Hi, Auntie," Izuku manages to choke out. Auntie AWS at his voice and hugs him tighter. Aizawa can hear his ribs creaking. Feeling a little out of place in this family reunion, Aizawa shrinks his tail from outside Izuku's bag and curls it around himself. He does what he's good at, analyzing. Katsuki is tense and not tense at the same time. He's leaning against the doorframe, staring at his mother's and Izuku's hug with something unreadable in his eyes in the light. They look a little less like pools of blood and more like rubies. Very angry rubies. He's muscular, and he likes to show it off. He's also, maybe, a little emo, if the skull on his DIY tank top says anything, or the stacks of studded bracelets on his wrists. For cousins, he and Izuku don't look anything alike, but Aizawa knows how genes work and doesn't think much of it. Auntie is muscular, too. She's also very beautiful. Her skin looks porcelain, and her hair is obviously well maintained. She and her son share the same blonde spikes, but hers are longer and silkier. A little less hairsprayed too, probably. She smells like caramel. Actually, the entire house reeks of burnt sugar, and Aizawa can pick it up easily with his enhanced scent. Auntie smells like she bathed in caramel, and Katsuki does too, but he's a little smokier. His sugar's more burnt. Another person appears in the doorway, next to Katsuki. This must be the father. While Auntie and Katsuki look like carbon copies of each other, he's got shaggy brown hair and a pair of glasses resting on his nose. "Mitsuki," the father speaks up gently. He doesn't reek of caramel as much. Aizawa doesn't think he'd be able to handle any more sugar smell. "You're going to kill the poor boy." "Uncle Masaru!" Izuku smiles, and Mitsuki relinquishes her hold on him. Unlike his wife, Masaru greets him very softly with a handshake. Katsuki, Mitsuki, and Masaru. Interesting family dynamic. "Izuku," Katsuki prods. Aizawa turns his head to the taller boy, only to find those red eyes locked right on his own. "Busted. Why in the ever-loving shit do you have a cat in your bag?" Mitsuki and Masaru both pause and notice him. Here it comes, Aizawa mentally prepares. "Ah, what a cutie pie!" Mitsuki squeals. "No, please, no more baby talk. Where did you find her?" Izuku scratches his cheek. He's a stray I found the other day." Actually. I know it's been a while, but I have a favor to ask." "Izuku, I do not like these people." Aizawa tries to protest. "Don't say it. Don't you say it." I was actually hoping you'd take care of him for me. ⴡⴜ Basically, Yamada is about to kill someone. His darling husband is missing. And now that it's officially been 48 hours, he's officially going to flip his shit. On Friday, October 6th, Aizawa Shouta's radios send out an alert. All of the hero radios are pre-programmed to send out a distress signal if the tracker has been in one place for far too long. Aizawa's clothes, capture weapon, and literally everything that he'd had on him before he disappeared was in a pile on the floor of an alley. In ᴡᴜ, no less, which was a ways away from his patrol route. There was literally no sign of him anywhere. An eyewitness saw a man with long black hair and a gray scarf run into the alley, guns blazing, and did not see anyone come out. Aizawa Shouta disappeared into thin air at around 10:46 p.m. Yamada took a few days off from UA to help search. He examined every nick and cranny of ᴡᴜ with a spyglass and a monocle. He conjured a folder of possible explanations and locations. He read said folder over and over and over again until his eyes were too heavy to open. Namuri decided to help, too. Aizawa was her friend also, and although she doesn't say it often, she cares for Yamada and Aizawa more than anyone else in the world. She brought Yamada coffees every day, ordered him dinner, and added her 2 cents whenever she felt that she needed to point out a detail in his work. She couldn't take off work, but she might as well have had a third job with how much she was doing for him. It's officially been 48 hours. Aizawa is not the type of person to go streaking in the middle of the night and skip town. Yamada is going to maim the next person he sees. Aizawa has always been a high target for villains, Detective Tsukachi explained. He was immediately assigned to the missing persons case, and Yamada sat across from him in his tiny office, palms spread over printed security footage from the night Aizawa went missing. There were 3 photos, blurry and grainy and low quality. One of Aizawa, his capture scarf floating above his head in thin spirals, hands mid-flex, eyes red, about to lunge into the mouth of an alleyway. It's a street camera, so they conveniently can't see what's actually inside of it. In the top right corner there are labels. 10 hours 46 minutes and 2 seconds 10/6 chem 23. The second photo is taken from the same angle, and it's empty. Yamada can see the mouth of the alley, see bits and pieces of graffiti, see the sidewalk just outside of it. 10 hours 47 minutes and 19 seconds 10/6 chem 23. But that's it. No Aizawa. No strange light or portal. Nobody whisks into the alley with a chloroform cloth in hand and ski mask over their head. The third photo captures the moment that the eyewitness, a young woman on the way home from a work party, investigates the scene. She spots the clothes on the ground, sees the driver's license of the man she just seen in front of her. But where is he now? She has one hand to her mouth and the other reaching for her phone. 10 hours 47 minutes and 59 seconds 10/6 chem 23. All of this evidence is already here because Aizawa happens to be high priority. If he wasn't such an important piece for the hero community, all of these details surely would have taken longer. Eraserhead is powerful and quick, sure, but his quirk is really what makes him high on the priority list. Also, Yamada can be really intimidating when he wants to be. There was the kidnapping attempt 2 years ago, with the random Yuna named Yakuza. From the people we captured in the following operation, we discovered that several other organizations had been in contact about Eraser's quirk, and its potential in the criminal underworld. Yamada knows this. Knows that Eraserhead has a massive, red sign on his back that says, "I'm useful. Kidnap me!" He also knows that another attempt was probably going to happen sooner or later. But he didn't think it would be so confusing. Tsukachi clears his throat. He slides a sheet of paper over the desk. The young woman eyewitness was interviewed after calling the police, and the conversation was recorded and transcribed onto the paper. It reads, "Officer, where were you prior to your calling?" Fujioka, I was at a work party. It wasn't official or anything. Stuttering, just a couple of co-workers. They invited me and my other friend to drinks. And then I was walking to the train station. Officer, walk me through everything that you saw. Fujioka, well, There was this man, pause, he had long, kind of messy dark hair. And it was floating all above him along with a pause scarf. He looked kind of scary, you know, like Batman from those old comics. But he ran into this alley right as I turned the corner onto Burney Street. And then he just... Officer, just what? Fujioka disappeared. Officer, disappeared? Fujioka, yes, ma'am. I mean, I had my earbuds in, so I didn't hear much, but by the time I'd taken them out, it was just silent. And I was confused. The man looked kind of like he was angry, so I peered into the alley. Officer, you peered into the alley. Fujioka, and on the ground, there was a pile of his clothing. A pair of keys, a wallet, and a hero ID fell out of the pants pocket. And no man. Officer, no man. Fujioka, no man. This is impressive, Yamada says, because it is. They already have a lot to go on, and Aizawa was only just reported as officially missing. It's impressive, and Tsukachi smiles. Aizawa is a good man and a good hero. I'd like to keep him around a little longer. Yamada smiles back, despite his weariness. And then it's back to business. Are there any other crimes that were reported in that area? He inquires, and Tsukachi is already on top of it, shuffling 2 mugshots onto the top of their paper pile. One's an older man with sunken eyes and curved teeth poking from his lower lips. The other is a much younger man, with tousled orange hair and markings similar to an animal's on his face. Yamada sees the rosettes of a leopard on his cheeks and the antlers of an antelope sprouting from his forehead. Daiki was arrested by pro-hero Takeshita in the early morning for attempting bieni. This was only 6 blocks from the Burney alley. Tsukachi points to the older man, and then moves his finger to the younger, animal-marked man. Akigo was actually a civilian arrest. He had a quirk that could allow him to mimic animals, but he was either hopped up on trigger or had a quirk awakening, because while attempting to rob an older woman he accidentally turned her into a lioness. Tsukachi chuckles. It's actually kind of a funny story. I was at the station late doing some paperwork when all of a sudden a literal lion was knocking on the door holding this guilty-looking guy in her teeth. We got him for assault, robbery, and public quirk usage. He was a repeated offender. The things that quirks did to the world, you know? Yamada laughs a little, just to be polite, but mostly he's just trying to find some correlation between the crimes. Akigo was arrested only 4 blocks from the alley, but 6 hours later. What does it mean? Jack's hit, that's what. Okay. Yamada stands. He's tired, and he's been at the station for a little over 3 hours now. He grabs his duffel from the chair he'd slung it over and zips it open. It alright if I take some of this home? Probably not, but I won't tell. I'll get copies. Tsukachi's a highly respected detective, but he also knows how much this means to Yamada. Thanks. Yamada can't muster up a smile this time. His hair is greasy, and his scalp is sore from the constant tugging at the ponytail he'd hastily thrown up. His glasses are crooked on his face, and he's not sure if that stain on his shirt is raspberry jam from his lunch kolache, or the blood from his raw nail beds. He picks up a few of the more important papers and shoves them into his duffel, the security footage photos, the eyewitness interview, and the mugshots. He's careful to be gentle with the photo of Aizawa about to jump into the alley. It might be the last photo he'd ever get of his husband alive. He zones out on the walk to the train station. It's only once he's got his hand wrapped around a cold, silver rung in the train car that he comes back to himself. The train starts moving, starts to depart with a shudder and a sigh. It's dark outside, and he can see his reflection in the windows, staring right back at him, wide green eyes, eye bags that might as well be bruises. That's me, he thinks. 2 days without my husband. I'm beginning to lose hearing in my left eye. Where is Present Mike when you need him? I'm not taking care of your fucking cat. ⴚ why? Because I hate cats. You know this, nerd. Katsuki flicks Izuku's forehead, and Aizawa is taking back everything he thought about this boy. He's a godsend. A legend. Even if I did, that one is ugly. Never mind. The two boys and cat are sitting in Katsuki's room. Izuku is sat in a wheeled desk chair, and Aizawa is perched on the arm of the chair, tail flicking behind him. Katsuki himself just plopped into a dark red beanbag, hands folded and man-spreading. His room is covered with band posters and some hero merch along with a couple radical political slogans here and there and horror movie covers. Aizawa spots a photo of one of his favorite punk bands from middle school back when he wore studded belts. The atmosphere was awkward. There were several pauses in which time seemed to stretch on into a string pulled taut. Izuku was avoiding eye contact, staring at a bare-toothed shirt that was pinned up on the wall. Katsuki was similarly glaring at his hands, eyebrow twitching every second that the silence was unbroken. Aizawa's eyes bounced between the two boys. The tension was so palpable he could swipe his claws through the air and feel resistance. It was so miserable he really was tempted to. "So is that it?" Katsuki asks finally. Izuku doesn't so much as flinch, just analyzes the shirt's set list as if it was the most important thing in the world. "You just show up one day, shove a cat into our arms, and leave? I can't take care of him." "I'm sorry." Izuku shrugs. He has the decency to look guilty. "I know it's been a while. But all the shelters are full because of the storm and…" "I don't know." Katsuki sighs. Typical. "What? Why can't you take care of him?" "You know why." "No, I don't." "Tell me." Izuku sputters. "I just can't. I tried every single shelter in town, and even 2 towns over. I asked volunteers and…" From what Aizawa can gather, the boys have a complicated history. Izuku had mentioned it earlier on the walk to the house, but Katsuki is now staring at the curly-haired teen with something akin to betrayal. After the little family reunion at the front door, Mitsuki had dismissed the two to talk, albeit after 1 or 2 more crushing hugs. Izuku is rambling now, getting lost in his explanation. Katsuki pinches the bridge of his nose, and as if it's physically paining him to say, Izuku, it's fine." Izuku blinks. Then he brightens. "You?" "No. I'm not taking the cat. It looks like it wants to claw my eyeballs out." He's right about that. Aizawa is glaring, has been glaring, and flicks his tail at the recognition. Izuku is about to refute, but then he sees the expression that he's making and the argument dies in his throat. "It likes you." While Aizawa does not appreciate being called in, he does appreciate that this pawning off fluffy operation wasn't seeming to go as smoothly as Izuku had planned. "Well, yeah, I've been feeding him." Izuku shrugs. "Anyone would do what I did, though. Surely Auntie Mitsuki could help. My old hag used to forget me at the playground." Katsuki interrupts immediately, halting that train of thought. Aizawa knows firsthand that no, not anyone would do what Izuku had done. He'd actually been about to lose hope when the kind-hearted teen helped him. Most adults don't have that kind of sympathy, even for other humans. "You literally fucking know all of this. Why are you bothering?" Izuku looks guilty again. He falls deep into contemplation, and Katsuki lets him, albeit with a mean sneer twisted on his face. The boy frowns, accepts something, and slowly reaches for his bag. I brought hero cards too." Katsuki brightens, just a little, and then he remembers that he's mad and goes back to sulking. "Okay?" Izuku shyly pulled the cards from his bag. I have a golden Miruko card, and a silver edge shot." Katsuki shot up from his beanbag, stalked to his bookshelf, and pulled out a folder. A fucking folder. He returned to the beanbag, aggressively sat down, opened the folder's cover with way more force than necessary, and glared at the other boy. "I'll give you my best genus for Miruko." Izuku's eye twitched. "What are genus stats?" 8 attack, 5 defense, 4 crit. Health? 2 health. How about Crimson Riot? "I'll give you Miruko for Crimson Riot." "No chance, nerd." "Edge shot for Rock Lock." "I already have Rock Lock." "Midnight." "I have Midnight too." "Fuck, 13? What rank?" "Bronze." "Do you have a silver?" "Yes." "Silver 13 for Silver Edge shot." "Deal or no deal, Izuku crossed his arms, and it's the first time Aizawa has seen him so serious. Fuck you, Katsuki says, fishing a card from his folder. I'll deal if you agree to take care of the furry shit rag yourself. Izuku is plotting Aizawa's fate over a card trading match. He frowns, stares at his iridescent edge shot card, and nods slowly. Okay. Fine. This is how wars should be resolved, Aizawa thinks. By collectible trading cards. Katsuki snatches his edge shot and tucks it safely into his folder's pocket. Then he holds out a similarly iridescent card with 13's photo on it, and Izuku similarly snags it up, setting it and his golden Naruko back into his bag. Now that Aizawa's fate has been bartered over and decided, the two boys both relax into their chairs. I guess I have a cat now. Izuku shrugs. Aizawa's ear flicks. At least until the storm rolls over. How have you been smuggling it? Izuku blinks. What? Katsuki's lips straighten, and he raises an accusatory eyebrow. I know how much Auntie Inko hates pets. How have you been hiding the damn thing from her? Izuku swivels in his chair, twisting back and forth. Through my bag. And I hid Fluffy's bed under my bed. Fluffy? What the fuck kind of name is Fluffy? I don't know. If you're going to keep the damn thing, name it something epic. Katsuki's face morphs into a grin. Aizawa's glad for the suggestion, but he's not sure if he's liking whatever the blonde has cooking up in his head. Like what? I'm not very good at names. Izuku points out the obvious, frowning. Something like Murder King Explosion God. I'm not naming him Murder King Explosion God. Explosion Lord Torturer. Kaken. Well, the boys seem to be getting along well, Aizawa thinks. Katsuki seems to like explosions. What else is new? The mood has lifted now, and he's glad for it. The two teens are stuck bantering, and Aizawa sighs, hopping down from his chair arm perch to settle on the edge of Katsuki's bed. He wonders how Hizashi is doing. What are his free co-workers up to? How are they taking his disappearance? Hizashi, he knows, is raining all hell upon the world. But he can also imagine Nemuri, sweater bunched around her wrists and eyes red. Her long, dark hair would be braided into 2 intricate patterns, a trick she picked up on just to keep her hands distracted after Oboro. Hizashi let her do his hair too, on days that she fell back into a dark place. A dark place that Aizawa and Hizashi were familiar with themselves. Hizashi. He was always an aggressive go-getter. If he set his mind to something, he relentlessly chased after it. That's how it was with their early friendship. The blonde-haired idiot would nag at Aizawa, and nag, and nag and nag until he got him to crawl out of his shell piece by piece. Sometimes, Tsukachi and Aizawa went out for coffee. They'd been on enough cases together to be well acquainted, and when Tsukachi was stuck on an assignment, Aizawa proved to be a helpful mind to have around. He would surely be on his tail soon, literally. He wouldn't shave his stubble until he found Aizawa safe and sound, and a beard looked unflattering on the man. Aizawa was shaken from his pondering session when Katsuki's bedroom once again fell under a blanket of silence. Katsuki and Izuku had their eyes locked, sharing a wordless conversation. Katsuki opened his mouth, then closed it, and then sighed. Are we going to talk about it? He crossed his arms. Izuku was quick to tense, curling his shoulders into himself. Aizawa perked his head up, guilty that he was eavesdropping, but also feeling a little curious, and if he accidentally overheard a piece of generational drama or something of the sort, then the boys would never find out. Talk about? Izuku trailed off. Last year? Yes, last year. What else would I be talking about? Fuck, Katsuki drawled, dragging a hand down his face tersely. I mean just shit fuck. Aizawa didn't take Katsuki as one to stutter much. He didn't seem like the type of boy to pull his punches, but under the subject of last year, he fumbled, picking at his nail polish. Izuku was similarly out of character. For once, he wasn't a stuttering, rambling mess. It was as if the boys switched personalities. You just, oh my fucking Christ, you. Ugh. Katsuki failed to articulate. He bent over his knees, combing a hand through his hair. Izuku watched him, lips pursed oddly still. Yeah. Izuku gathered himself for several beats. I'm sorry. Don't say that. Katsuki snapped. Don't you ever fucking say that again, hear me? He swallowed. Nodded. Silence fell again. The room seemed to ice over. Aizawa was glad he wasn't the center of the argument anymore, but this felt wrong to intrude on. Burying his head between his paws did nothing to block the sound from reaching his ears, but it did make him feel a little less guilty. Was it what I said? Katsuki's leg started to bounce. His eyes bled crimson. Be because you know I didn't mean it. I'd never mean it, Izuku, I never meant it, ever. No! No! Izuku nearly leaped from his chair. He sat back down quickly, folding his hands in his lap. No, it wasn't you, I knew it, logically. I knew somewhere in my mind that you didn't actually. But the other part of you thought I did mean it, right? Katsuki's lips twisted. Just as quickly as his facade slipped, he pulled it back up. Right? Aizawa didn't like listening. This was confusing, he decided. What on earth could they be talking about? But I never would have even considered it if it weren't for other things. Izuku's breath shook. It wasn't your fault. You were just the straw that broke the camel's back, per se why you know? It wasn't you. Just blame me, Izuku. Katsuki pulled his feet to sit crisscrossed. It's okay to blame me. You can blame me. I don't blame you. I never have. Aizawa felt like he was watching some twisted, ugly soap opera. This was not a conversation he was ever supposed to hear. He barely knew Izuku, barely knew Katsuki. He didn't need to know the nitty-gritty of their friendship. Then why? I would never take you seriously. I know that you didn't mean it seriously. You never do, I know you kaken. Katsuki's voice broke. He stared straight into Izuku's eyes, into his soul. Then why did you try to kill yourself? The soap opera shattered. Aizawa is standing on a roof. He's staring down at his socked feet, at his calloused teenage hands. The city bustles below him. The nightlife looks like ants from way up high, tiny ant people crawling around, unaware. The honk of a bus is distant. All he can hear is the wind in his ears and the rampaging rapids of his mind. He doesn't see how the heights distort and wobble, all he sees is Oboro's face. Oboro, smiling, the gap in his teeth wide and boyish and directed straight at Aizawa. Oboro, blood caking his face, eyes wide, unblinking, hand limp, sprawled out on the concrete like a rag doll. Aizawa sees him again. He's just a few feet ahead, and his smile is back. He doesn't look lifeless anymore. The stars are fanned out behind him, a night sky tapestry. There are no clouds, just his hair. He's beckoning Aizawa, whispering, "Come closer. Just a few more steps. It's okay, I'll catch you." Then there's a flash of blonde hair. Green eyes. Someone enveloping him. The night has never seemed so cold, but they are warm. Warm like the tears. And then Aizawa is back to himself, scrambling away from the ledge he'd been precariously balanced upon moments earlier, gasping for air. He hadn't even realized that he wasn't breathing. Someone pants next to him, matching him, and sobs in relief. "Shouta, you're okay, Shouta, you're okay." Aizawa's vision tunnels. He's back. Back in the room. Izuku is as still as a statue. He doesn't move or blink, or even make a rise of his chest. Katsuki does the exact opposite. He inhales, darts to his feet, and starts pacing the length of his bedroom. He paces so hard that his footsteps leave smoking trails, like the tire tracks of a car gone off course. The floor burns under him. Izuku is freezing. He's an ice statue. "I'm sorry, I'm sorry," Katsuki grits. I shouldn't have even asked, I know, it's complicated, right?" Izuku frees himself from paralysis, eyebrows knitting. "Kaken. You, fuck, bitch ass. What colorful language you have, Katsuki. Little chucklefuck, twat waffle, dick sneeze, cuntbag." Izuku's nose scrunches. Kaken, seriously. This is stupid. This is so stupid, and everything's stupid, and I'm stupid and you're stupid. Kaken! An officer might as well have just busted down the door in full riot gear and yelled, "Freeze!" Katsuki stops pacing, knee-deep in the floor, and stares blankly at Izuku. Izuku does a short breathing exercise. Aizawa feels like he's just been sealed and air vacuumed into a box and shot into the stratosphere at terminal velocity. Kaken, Izuku says. I'll admit it. The blonde teen straightens. Several expressions flash across his face, some of which Aizawa didn't know were possible, before settling on a confused and awkward pinch. Admit. What you said did affect me a bit. Izuku draws his canines across his lip. But Kaken, that was only because I was in the wrong headspace. Sure, you may have been a little violent with your wording. I was more than violent, idiot. But I think we both know where that comes from. The two teens share a narrow of the eyes. It's a fond narrow. And I think the thing that matters is that I'm over it. I'm not suicidal anymore, and you were never the reason. And wow, that's a lot to process. Izuku Midoriya is in an emotionally and probably physically abusive household. He tried to kill himself a year ago, and Katsuki somehow had something to do with it. But he's guilty enough, and teenagers are stupid like that. Aizawa has seen a lot of things during his career both as a hero and as a teacher. Children are never to blame. Katsuki is not to blame. He'd ought to take responsibility for whatever the fuck he did, but Aizawa will not hold anything against the boy until he knows the full story. What he will do is search Izuku's room for sharp objects. Aizawa wanted to die once. He knows that shit never really leaves you. You can grow bigger than it until the feeling's just a tiny blip on your radar, but it never leaves. You're my best friend, Kaken, you know that? Izuku smiles. It's wobbly and unstable, but it's honest. Even back when you were an asshole. You were always my best friend. Fuck, Izuku. Katsuki wipes away his tears. He doesn't know when they started spilling, but he wipes them with fervor, even accidentally scraping his cheek with one of his bracelets. Come here, you little shitrag. Izuku stands, his eyes starting to swell with tears too, and spreads his arms wide. Katsuki opens his arms equally as wide, palms splayed out to his bedroom, and the two walk towards each other, about to hug in probably the most heartfelt scene Aizawa has seen in a while. Boys! Mitsuki slams the door open. I brought snacks! They teleport to different sides of the room faster than he can say, howdy do. It was dark. She needs to wear him down. Get him tired. She shepherds criminals in the right direction, tells them that the man with the dark hair is looking for a fight. The wind swirls around her, circulating between the valley of buildings that urban Muzadafa holds. This isn't First Street where bar hoppers shove their friends around, red-faced and happy, or where stores stay open to rake in cash from the local nightlife. This is a quieter place. The streetlights hum, carving cookie-cutter circles into the darkness, and she makes sure never to linger too close to one. The light makes her nauseous. It makes her feel like she's naked, exposed. Skirting around the spotlight, she pulls the dart from her jacket. She scrapes little pieces of pocket lint from the device and examines the shimmering liquid inside. It's a prototype. The real thing hasn't gone much past its experimental phase, but desperate times call for desperate measures. When she tilts the dart, its solution glints in the distant streetlight, shifting from one color to the next. Mostly, though, it stays red. Dark, thick red. In the palm of her hands, she holds the most sought-after item on the dark market, Trigger. The breeze begins to blow in a different direction. Trigger reeks of, oddly enough, PF popcorn. It smells like the microwave bags of popcorn that you butter up for a night watching movies. When it's used, it kind of sounds like it too. Pop, 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 and then the inevitable scream of its victim. She appreciates it. She wants to sample her pinky finger in the glass vial of Trigger and rub it above her Cupid's bow so that she can smell it all of the time. Okay, so admittedly, Izuku thinks his cat is a little weird. It's not really his cat, he insists. He's just taking care of it until a shelter will open up, But Izuku can tell from his far and in-between experience with felines that this guy is not quite like the others. First of all, he didn't realize how responsive cats were to language. When Izuku spoke, it was almost like Benno, Fluffy's new name, was actually listening. His big yellow eyes followed him, and he never moved much while Izuku rambled. Almost like he was digesting the words like any other human would. Benno, whether he realized it or not, made a lot of small noises that almost sounded like they were in response to Izuku. When he wondered aloud what he should have for lunch, Benno would meow lowly. When he excitedly pointed out a new piece of hero analysis, he would purr. Second of all, Benno was almost careful. Maybe cats had a sixth sense, and he could smell the evil reeking off of Mama. Or maybe it was just the smell of alcohol that made Benno so compliant. Whenever they were inside the apartment, he was quiet. He didn't meow, or purr, or knock over objects. When Izuku moved his little makeshift bed underneath his own bed frame, he accepted it easily, and while trekking to the bathroom, he didn't wander off into the living room. He didn't wiggle around much inside of his bag, and he never outright showed any sort of displeasure towards Izuku. It felt really nice. Izuku liked having a friend around. He and Kaken only started getting along again recently. The incident turned out to be the straw that broke the camel's back, and then Kaken was having weekly visits to a therapist, and he even took a week-long anger management class. Izuku tried to congratulate him with a bouquet of, a little bit more than slightly wilted, flowers, but then Kaken just grit his teeth, threw the bouquet in his mother's face, and screamed, "I don't need your damn consideration!" Some things never change, no matter how many shrinks you see. But since Izuku skipped town, they couldn't hang out on a regular basis. Kaken offered to exchange phone numbers, but he didn't have a phone. He used to, but then Mama got mad at him for listening to music too loud and smacked it against the kitchen counter. His new school was much larger than Aldera, and thus nobody really cared about the tiny green kid in the corner. He didn't take up nearly as much space as the rhino mutation boy, or call as much attention to himself as the girl with the glowing pink hair. But Izuku is sure that if word of his quirklessness got out, things wouldn't be as simple, which is why he'll just stay quiet. Going weeks without speaking at all is much better than weeks of collecting bruises. Maybe Benno was a blessing in disguise. He doesn't feel quite as lonely anymore. Someone will listen to him mumble and tangent, and that feels good, human or cat. Izuku's not really sure why Kaken chose such an odd name for the cat. It was the only one they could agree on, since Izuku's ideas consisted of Nyan and Gato, and Kaken's ideas consisted of explosion and death. Benno was easy. He even had a last name. Kaken said that ⴑ was German for cutie. After their conversation, Izuku and Kaken hung out for a while longer. They played video games and Izuku got to eat something other than granola bars for the first time in a while. Kaken made him listen to his new vinyl, and even though it was a little too screamo for his tastes, Izuku enjoyed it. Auntie Mitsuki had to bang on the door in order for them to quiet it down, but Kaken just turned the speaker up louder in response. Benno tucked his ears to his head, and Izuku laughed giddily, holding his palms over the cat's ears. Benno blinked at him almost gratefully. When it started getting dark out, however, Izuku decided to start wrapping up. He and Kaken made a save point in their game, Pinky promising to continue it next weekend, and when Izuku turned to get his messenger bag, Benno was already comfortable inside of it, glaring up at him boredly. The boy shrugged, pulled on his jacket, tied his shoes, and pulled a pair of gloves over his hands. Now that the sun was set, the weather was much cooler, and his breath came out in puffs of condensation. He said goodbye to Auntie and Uncle, and then saluted Kaken. Kaken smiled, a little askew, and saluted right back. That leads to now. Perusing down the street is much less noteworthy the second time around. Snow has already begun to fall. A cold front has just hit, and Izuku savors the night while he still can. According to a television screen in a store window, the upcoming storm will be record-breaking. Bundled up in his jacket and gloves, Izuku's only a little cold, but Benno is shaking slightly in the bag. Feeling guilty, He shrugs off his jacket and folds it over the cat's shivering body. He tucks it into his sides and flips up the collar to cover Benno's little ears. It's a small price to pay. Izuku figures he won't catch hypothermia. He still has a long-sleeved undershirt and jeans, but Benno's only equipped with a coat of rather thin fur. The cat looks up at him and blinks slowly. Izuku likes to think he's saying, "Thank you?" Unfortunately, before they can head home, he needs to stop by the convenience store and pick up his medicine. That feeling, the little pulse between his eyes and twitches of his fingers, gets worse every week he doesn't take it. But since Izuku barely has the money to afford medication, he has to settle for a new pack every other week. Thankfully, Abe lets him pay under the counter. He's a nice man, and he understands. He knows that sometimes when Izuku comes around with a black eye, it's not his fault. Benno perks his head up when they get off the train a stop early. He turns his head as much as he can, swaddled like a baby. Izuku smiles. "I have to get something before we can go home." Patience. The bell above the convenience store's automatic door tinkles. He steps under the fluorescent bulbs, and Abe has to put on his square glasses to recognize him. When he does, the man grins toothily and struggles up from his chair. "Midoriya!" The store is empty save for some tall guy in a hoodie browsing the nicotine shelf. Abe wheezes, his old age catching up to him, and reaches over the counter to wrap Izuku in a really awkward and really uncomfortable side hug. He's quick to withdraw when something in his back pops. "Oh, Sonny, is that the cat? That you, got the bandages for?" Abe pointed at Benno, who acknowledged the man with a pointed glare. "He don't look all there." Izuku shrugs. Benno still has a few healing scratches along his back, but the most visible one is a pair of 3 claw marks of equal length stretching across his jaw. The scabs are beginning to fall off already, but the first splits, and it makes the cat look like he's a catnip dealer or something. He has a sprained leg, but otherwise he's healing well. Refill for next month?" Abe nods. Right. Just in the back. I'll grab it." Abe grabbed his cane to hobble over to the storage room. Unfortunately, his prescriptions weren't exactly that legal. The medications themselves were perfectly safe when taken as intended, but Izuku isn't registered with any doctors or psychiatrists. He's still a minor, and he knows that there's no way in hell Mama will ever help him with this. Izuku rocks on his heels while he waits. He wonders what he'll do tomorrow. School will be starting up again, and he can't leave Benno alone. He knows that Mama snoops through his stuff. There's a chance that she'll find Benno if he leaves him at home. So then should he take the cat to school? As long as he stayed quiet, it would be fine, but it definitely wasn't a desirable situation. What if he left him in the abandoned storage closet with food and water, and checked up on him every hour? That feels too cruel. "That your cat, kid?" Hoodie Guy's voice is real raspy. He thumbs through a handful of cash, eyeing the price of a vape. Izuku blinks and glances at the man, then beams. "No, sir. Not really. I'm just taking care of him until the storm passes," he explains, using one nail to scratch the indentation between Benno's ears. "Shelters are all full." Hoodie Guy sizes him up, politely. Sizes him up politely? He doesn't even turn his head, but Izuku can see his eyes flickering up and down. He hums thoughtfully, pockets his cash, and reaches over the counter to the nicotine shelf. His hand phases through the glass, and he withdraws from it the pen. Throwing a glance at Izuku, he breezes past to the door. "Hope it ain't a tattle." Izuku purses his lips. Well, he's just witnessed a crime. Oh well. Not his business. All right. Abe bumbles from the storage room, a small paper bag in free hand. "Here's it at, son." Izuku reaches into his jacket and hands Abe a wad of bills wrapped with a rubber band. Abe checks it barely, skimming the numbers. He knows that Izuku doesn't cheat. He stuffs the roll into his quarter pants and presents Izuku his medication. "Thank you, Mr. Abe." The boy bows. Abe has none of it and ruffles his curls. Quit it. Just stay safe, heh? And stay away from that old bitch." "Why, you mean my mother?" "Yeah. The old bitch." Izuku disagrees. Mama's not a bitch, she just has trouble. She's not like the other moms, she's running a different race, and she's doing the best she can. Izuku thinks that Mama is brave. Especially for putting up with Izuku as much as she has. Okay. He dismisses. Thank you. Oh, also, someone stole the. Oh, I don't give a shit, he can have it. Abe snorts. Just get out of here, son. Izuku complies. Are you joking? She holds her head in her hands. Are you actually fucking joking? Nobody is joking. Of course she's this unlucky, of course he was turned into a cat, and not something trackable like the fucking Leonis that came later. Now she's down one vial of trigger and Big Man is going to skin her for failing to abduct the target. Big Man is going to peel each muscle fiber like string cheese off of her body, and then stitch it back together, and make her go on a wild goose chase. Wild goose chases are not her forte. Everything was so thought out, so planned, blueprint and etched down in stone. Target was smart. He would only go down if he was tired, and everything was going so perfectly. Then she brought the dart to her lips and with a mighty breath the vial of trigger was embedded deep in Tiger Claw's skin, and then it was time for her to leap down on her prey. And then Target disappeared, straight from his clothes, and a tiny little fucking little cat was running off into the night. Never to be seen again, not for the next week. Her orders were strict. They weren't supposed to be hard. Bring Target back to Big Man, and then Big Man would handle it all from there, and she would be graciously rewarded. When Big Man's project was finished, she would be one of the first people to buy it, he promised. She was excited for the project, but the project was doomed without the ᴅᴇ'ʟ, Target. Somebody's gotta be pranking me, she wailed. Someone please reveal the cameras already. Hypothetically, Tsukachi is going to go home and wring his neck with a sheet. He's only a man. A man knee-deep in work, and he's starting to feel less like a well-renowned detective and more like a paper pusher. Tsukachi is not a paper pusher. He kicks criminal underworld ass, and he has the trench coat/fedora combo to prove it. But for some reason, Chief is neglecting him. She keeps saying something about, "No more cases until you can finish that pile." Said pile is stacked upon his desk. All in favor of ignoring the ominous Jenga Tower of Doom, say I. Tsukachi drawls. Not only is Chief on his back, but Yamada is too. Don't get him wrong, Yamada is a great friend of his, but there's a line of concern that he passed about 2 days ago. Tsukachi really hopes Aizawa shows up soon, because he's not sure how many more times he can say the words, "I'm trying," without bleeding in some passive aggressiveness. The coffee machine won't cooperate. The tick of the clock is reverberating in his brain. A new hire is bursting into his office. "Knock, please," Tsukachi says, exasperated. The young officer, balancing several folders, fumbles. Sorry, detective. Lassiter wants to talk to you." Tsukachi eyes him. The younger man feels scrutinized under his gaze, like his skin is being pulled taut and his hair shaved. That's the power of Tsukachi's stare. Once those dark eyes are locked on you, lead paint stare cranked to the boiling point, you can't help but feel like you're being dissected piece by piece. Skin, then muscle, then bones, and then he is just glowering at your soul as if it's the culmination of every misjudgment in the human universe. Tsukachi wills himself not to fire a round into his mouth. "Okay. I'm going." Detective Lassiter, a detective on the Musadafa team, crosses his arms over a finely tailored suit and nods at him to take a seat. Tsukachi doesn't sit. He opts to stand just beyond Lassiter's desk, hands tucked into his pockets. "Lassie." "It's Lassiter." Lassiter pins him with a scowl. "Lass." "Whatever." He shrugs, opening a drawer in his desk and fishing out a centimeter-thick folder. He flips to a blue marker and tosses the folder, pages up, across the desk. "Look at this." "Oh fuck," Tsukachi says calmly. Staring up at him is the face of one annoying, ugly mug drug dealer, one he's very familiar with, unfortunately. He had lots of accusations thrown at him, accusations that ᴘᴇ knew held actual weight. The PD just didn't have the actual, foolproof evidence to bring the guy in. Hence, the pain in his ass named Shinjiro Ikami. Lassiter scratches his chin idly. We might finally have something on him. What is it? We caught a kid downtown with a less than legal amount of sugar on him. He's a good kid, and he was more than willing to share his sources with us after being promised a decent job. He explains. His plug apparently operates out of the soup store on 6th. And Ikami owns that place. ᴘᴇ finishes. He totally does not do a little victory fist pump. Yes. Don't get excited yet. Lassiter gets a little grimmer. He frowns and flips the page in the folder, showing off a laminated photograph of some sort of blueprint. It's a design for some sort of dart? The problem, ᴘᴇ. He looks ᴘᴇ in the eye. Is that Ikami might be a new involvement in the trigger case. That's a bad thing. I hate this motherfucking school. Izuku isn't normally violent in his wording, but he feels like the emphasis would be lost without a little umph. He doesn't just hate his school, he hates his motherfucking school. The Benno issue had been, somewhat solved. Mr. Abe had happily agreed to taking care of him for the day. He said that it would be refreshing to have company for once. Aizawa glared at Abe with all the hatred he could muster when the man tried to pet him. This was going to be a long 8 hours. Har har, spill your orange juice over the dumb quirkless kid, har har, look he's so stupid. Izuku murmured angrily to himself, running his ruined Gakuren under the bathroom sink. It was all sticky and wet. Gimmicks like this weren't even entertaining anymore, just old. Couldn't people get a little creative? He wishes he had at least one friend, but any chance at a decent relationship with his peers got crumpled up and dunked into the trash the second he was outed as quirkless, a recent development. Before people knew, they treated him like he didn't exist. What was the big difference? A title? Some kids didn't even have useful powers. What good was a Lego block as a head going to do? But a Lego block was better than nothing, and at least the word quirkless is enough justification for them to be assholes. They can't bully a quirk kid for no reason, but they'll get away with a hit and a shove if you've got no powers to defend yourself with. 2 kids, upperclassmen, stumble into the bathroom and Izuku is forced to evacuate. He lets his jacket hang off of his arm to air dry, and if he leaves a trail of water droplets in his wake, then it's revenge for all the times that the janitors refused to give him cleaning products for his desk. Hey, Deku! One of his classmates greets when he sits down in class. He doesn't remember the dude's name, but the dude never bothered to learn his name either. It's not Deku how the name followed him to a different school, he's not quite sure. I was totally spacing out in math, he complains. I saw you taking notes, do you mind if I take a look? Izuku does mind, but he's a good little boy, so he wordlessly passes his notes over. There are insults written in the margins when he gets them back a whole period later. He kind of misses the old Kaken. Kaken was extremely mean before the incident, but at least he said shit to his face. These kids are cowardly. They write their cliché lines on his desk with erasable expo, and whenever he trips on his ass in the hallway it's always, "Oops, my leg slipped," accompanied by giggles, and never a plain, "Watch it, freak." When they seek him out after school to do whatever they do after school, it's in some shady alley instead of in some shadowy corner. Old Kaken didn't understand that he was doing wrong. These kids, older kids, do. So basically, Izuku's having a bad day, but it's not as bad as it could be. At least nobody has given him a well shit. Never mind, he goes to get water for 1 second, and this is what happens. He tucks the probably unfresh spider lily into his backpack pocket. He gets too many of them too often to waste them in the garbage. By the time a softball hits him square in the eye as he's walking out of the school gates, Izuku's done. He's too tired to care about the bruise that is probably forming on his face, because even though it hurts like a bitch, it's just another cherry atop his ice cream sundae of hell life. Thankfully, his jacket has dried since lunch, so Izuku shrugs it on along with his fake fur coat that he's very glad he stashed in his backpack. Holy cannoli, it's cold out. The weather bites at his nose and forces his fingers into his sleeves, and he's suddenly yearning for a warm fire and a cup of cocoa. There's been no precipitation for the past night, so thankfully snow isn't piling yet, but if the meteorologist's reports are right, then it will soon. By the time Izuku is barging through the doors of the convenience store, Aizawa is about ready to jump off a tall shelf. Almost every single customer had tried to pet him while checking out, and Aizawa would chill in the back, but it's so dusty he legitimately couldn't breathe back there. So the counter it is, and the counter it was, for hours. Thankfully, the cashier who clocked in at 10 o'clock pulled up Broad City on her computer and let it play her whole shift. If she noticed the way Aizawa watched it like an actual person, she didn't say anything. He's not sure if he's grateful or not. He wondered if he should reveal himself to Izuku by typing something on his Chromebook, but ultimately realized that it could be more trouble than what it's worth. His best option, for now, is to wait out whatever quirk hit him and then seek help as a human. Until that happens, he'll be on the lookout for any way to contact the PD/Hizashi while still in cat form. Izuku interrupted Aizawa's intense focus on a Broad City episode by practically tumbling into Abe's convenience store. A gust of cold wind followed him as he trudged up to the counter, rubbing friction into his red nose with his sleeve. The kid looked worse for wear. His gakuren looked a bit damp around the edges, his hair tousled, and a mottle of purple-yellow was beginning to form around his eye. He smiled upon seeing Aizawa curled up atop the counter like he owned it. "Hi, Benno. You look bad," Aizawa comments. "I know, I'm sorry for leaving you." Not what he said, but okay. "Cat's yours, kid?" The cashier, name tag reading ᴅᴇᴟ, brought her legs down from where they'd been propped up on a small shelf. "He's prissy." Why yes?" Izuku shivers off the outside chill, glad to be inside after such a long walk from school. "Well, not really. Speaking of, you wouldn't mind taking care of Hai." "Nope, not a chance. I hate cats." "Fuck you too, ᴅᴇᴟ." "Okay." The boy frowns. He reaches for Aizawa, who only protests a little as he's lifted into a faux fur coat. Please tell Mr. Abe that I said thank you. For letting him stay here." "Noted. I'll make sure he knows." Izuku smiles a wobbly smile and scampers out the sliding doors, grumpy Aizawa in tow. "What the hell happened to your face?" Aizawa asks once they're out on the sidewalk. The wind picks up, and a conga line of leaves is swept into a miniature tornado a few feet ahead. It disintegrates as Izuku steps through it. "What are you poking at?" he asks, scrunching up his face as Aizawa paws at it. "Is my eye already bruising?" "Yes, problem child. It's really ugly." It's not that ugly, but Aizawa is a dad waiting to give the shovel talk somewhere inside of his heart. Seriously, when he gets turned back into a human being, he's going to miss being able to speak so freely. As a cat, he can say whatever the hell he wants and nobody will bat an eye, the dream of an introverted Aizawa Shouta. Says Izuku. "Some kid threw a softball at me." He didn't mean to." "Probably. But it didn't feel soft, so it was kinda more of a hardball." "Haha." Aizawa wants to cry. Mama won't be home until later tonight. And that reminder makes him want to cry even more. "You can explore the apartment for a little while. But then we'll have to hold back in my room." "Sorry." "It's fine." He's not good with kids. At all. Actually, he's the opposite of good. He's really bad with kids. Not like I'm going stir-crazy or anything. Has Aizawa mentioned that he's really, really bad with children? Izuku trots back to his apartment, nose buried in his coat, and rambling about some hero fight that happened on the news. The kid's not too shabby, analytic even, despite the fact that Aizawa can barely decipher his little mumbling tangents. It's almost impressive how fast his mouth moves and how quickly he bounces between childish admiration and cold, hard analytical prowess. I'm not really sure how he does it. Maybe it's part of his whole quirk thingamajigger. Aizawa thinks he's talking about that newbie, Hawks yet again. He was young and climbing the popularity ranks fast, but he was an HPSC brat, and he seemed a little too cocky for his own good. Aizawa met him once on a team-up mission, and while he never talked to the guy, he just seemed a little off. Regardless, Hawks was a good hero. I saw him go above the clouds in one clip on HeroTube. It was really cool to see how he propels and twists midair. I wonder if his bones are lighter than average. Are they fragile? Or are his wings just that strong, but the air pressure that high up can cause altitude sickness? How often does barometric pressure actually affect him, and if it doesn't, why not? Why doesn't he have goggles to protect his eyes? I can barely hold mine open when I try to look out the car window. His wings are ridiculously strong, says Aizawa, and he means it. During the team-up mission that Aizawa first learned of him, he watched the kid make a fucking samurai sword out of feathers and slice through a metal door. Speaking of Hawks, I heard that President Mike had him on his radio show Q. What? Blonde hair, green and red eyes, sunglasses, leather jacket, home comfort, stupid mustache, voice, American pop songs, crazy grin. Hizashi. That guy's my husband. Aizawa bops Izuku on the nose. Then he does it again, because there's something ugly coiling in his gut, and he never likes that feeling. Dread is the feeling that came with a messy childhood. Dread is the feeling that he can only associate with rubble and debris, of yellow goggles covered in dust, of clutching an arm that gushes with blood and drips onto the ground. I miss him a lot. You know, some heroes have to make their costumes out of one specific material. Like Evader. He's an older one, but his costume is just a thin steel suit. And that villain from the Hosu attack a year ago. I remember, his quirk gave him a shell of armor. It was sort of like glass but stronger. Aizawa's not sure where the boy is taking this, but then. You know, a lot of materials have resonant frequencies. Every material has a natural frequency that it vibrates at, and when subjected to that frequency, the amplitude of the vibrations are at their peaks. If that happens for long enough, the object can vibrate so violently it breaks. That's how opera singers shatter glass, Benno. Cool, right? But steel and aluminum have resonant frequencies too, I think. I wonder. If President Mike was at that Hosu attack and could somehow find the right frequency, he probably could have vibrated the villain's skin right off. If that doesn't work though, he could also just go straight for the kill. And not that murder is heroic or anything, but sounds over 185 decibels can impact inner organs severely by causing them to rupture. 170 to 200 dBs is enough to burst a lung. I think instant death takes around 240 dBs. Probably by exploding the person's head. Huh. Holy shit. 3 blocks behind, automatic doors screech open. A blond man mopes into a store, shoulders heavy, and then they're shaking from a sneeze. The cashier, whose eyes are locked on her computer, says, "Bless you." He sneezes again. "Bless you." Something is wrong with Izuku. Aizawa doesn't know what it is, but he can smell it. It's an odd mixed smell, like fresh cut grass and drying nail polish. It's not an inherently bad smell, but it lights up his nerves like a Christmas tree, and it makes his fur stand on end. The smell comes from Izuku. It's faint and barely noticeable at first, and Izuku doesn't seem to notice it himself, but it's been growing stronger hour by hour. The apartment is quiet. They're in his bedroom, and the silence would be oppressing if not for the desk fan that whirs incessantly. Izuku is scribbling something in his journal, locked onto the paper like a jaguar to a deer. Nothing seems outwardly wrong with him, but Aizawa has this feeling. It's the feeling in your gut when you turn off the lights in the basement and have to run up the stairs. Anticipation, terror. "You okay, kid?" Aizawa hops up on the boy's desk. Izuku blinks at him, pausing his work. Is that a sketch of Gang Orca? And a blueprint for his support item? "Hi," greets Izuku. His desk lamp casts shadows across his freckles. "Are you hungry?" "Yes, but I could care less." Aizawa lays on his haunches, ignoring the twinge of pain from his injured leg. It's getting better by the day, but he limps mostly everywhere still, and the cuts across his jaw only ache when he tries to pull a facial expression. "I don't know how, but you smell like you're scared. Here, you can have this granola bar." Oh God, please no more granola bars. You failed. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, sir. Her upper body is bowed parallel to the floor. There's an icy fear that grips her spine, threatening to snap it. The room is dark, always dark, but it's not the kind of dark that she likes. It's not the safe, blanketing dark. It's the dark where monsters hide. The dark in your closet, the dark under your bed. The dart didn't work like it was supposed to. It worked exactly how it was supposed to. Big man stretches like he's bored. He sighs. You made a mistake. It wasn't my fault. You could have caught him. He stands from his chair and stalks into the shadows. She feels him circling. There are tiny vibrations in the floor where he steps, but the sound of his boots echo, ricochet off the walls. He was going to make me a lot of money, you know. Chisaki wants him bad, and Chisaki has a lot of cash. Lots of cold hard cash, honey, and he really wanted that man. I can still find him, she assures, trying not to sound too nervous. I know I can. I won't fail you again. Speaking of money, from her left. She jolts, because she'd been sure his footsteps were off to the right somewhere. Do you know how much I spent getting a full vial of trigger? How much wasted trust one gave to you to put that vial to good use? This doesn't just affect you, you know. Flatface is never going to sell to me again if he finds out what you've done. I'll fix it, she whines. I'll fix it, I promise I'll be good. You'll fix it for me? And then Big Man is directly in front of her. He lifts her chin, brings her eyes to meet his. They're orange. Orange, bright orange, like a raging inferno, like the fluorescent clothes hunters wear. He sounds so hopeful. How can he still talk to her like she's human after all she's done? He's so kind, she thinks, for sparing me. You promise? I promise. She holds his gaze as long as she can. And then she looks away, because she feels a bit like exploding. Okay. Big Man graces her with a smile. Fix it for me. Don't fail me again, because then I'll be forced to do something bad to you. I don't want to have to do that. Something is really wrong with Izuku. It's 2:46 a.m., and he sits at the edge of his bed with his leg bouncing up and down and eyes glaring holes into the wall. His finger twitches. He looks determined, but Aizawa sees the fear too. The smell rolls off of him in waves, that same grassy nail polish scent, but now there's another undertone in it. Aizawa sifts through his index of smells. It's like cold? Is cold a smell? Like an underground parking garage. I haven't had one in a long time, Izuku says to himself, frowning, and then he sees Aizawa watching him like a hawk and bites his lip. I think 2 months before I found you, Benno. Had a what now? Aizawa plays absent-mindedly with the leftovers of his dinner, a plastic granola bar wrapper. Flexing his claws and tearing into the plastic is actually very entertaining. Maybe this is why Sailor always fucks up the couch. You're very confusing, kid. Don't panic, please. Izuku scratches his cheek like he's embarrassed. I don't want you to worry. This just happens to me sometimes. Aizawa pokes a hole into the letter O in granola. Izuku returns to staring at the wall. Aizawa takes the silence as a chance to reflect. Mostly, he's been occupied with trying to sort out theories for the transformation quirk he's under. The perp who got him had some sort of animal mutation. He seemed weak, like nothing special, really, but then there was the smell of popcorn and suddenly he was attacking with more ferocity than an actual lion. And then Aizawa wasn't Aizawa. It was weird. Quirks are weird, he supposes, because even after decades of research they're still largely misunderstood. There isn't a correct understanding at all yet. The quirk wars only ended recently, and extensive, detailed research is expensive. Was it evolution? Disease? Whatever it was, each generation of quirks was getting more and more powerful. Aizawa saw it firsthand as a teacher at UA. Quirk singularity theory. In 30 years, would every other person on the street have the power to turn humans into cats? And then there was the world of animals. Man, that had been a wild ride. finding out that stray cats had a hierarchy system and that, apparently, could communicate extremely well. Oh yeah, and then there was the whole street rats thing. There were mice cursing at him when Aizawa was still lost. They were saying some sort of slur, because apparently discrimination is inevitable no matter what species you are. Weird. So weird. Aizawa wonders, again, how Hisashi is doing. The dude's actually pretty violent. He had the general aura of a golden retriever on perks, but he's analytical and relentless. He wonders if the PD has been destroyed yet. Is it trashed from the inside out, or is it all in rubble from a superpowered scream? Aizawa can't count the number of times Hisashi has leaned over and whispered into his ear to ask, "Think we should just beat him up?" Nor the amount of times he half-heartedly responded, "Violence is never the answer, Zashi." He doesn't get to dwell on his husband for much longer, because Izuku falls on his side. "Kid?" He blinks. The boy is just lying there, legs dangling over the edge of his bed and upper body on its side. His eyelids aren't closed. Aizawa tries to meet his eyes, but they're rolled into his head. "Izuku?" He doesn't say anything. Not that he could understand Aizawa anyway, but he doesn't react when he hears a meow, doesn't even twitch. "If you want to sleep, then do it in a more comfortable position." Aizawa frowns. "You'll hurt your back." Izuku's eyelids start fluttering. Not in the waking up way, though. They shudder open and closed violently, but the rest of his face stays stock still, frozen in time. Blink, blink, blink. Aizawa has been a hero for a very long time. Contrary to popular belief, being a hero isn't just about arresting the bad guy. Sure, most pros market themselves that way, but the most important thing in hero work, the thing that will always stand above any villain any day, the civilians. Protecting the victims is always the number one priority. Arrest as many criminals as you want, but a human life is worth more than a handcuff being slapped on a wrist. That's exactly why all heroes are required to be immediately certified and experienced in rescue. Aizawa had to take way too many med courses to count. He's a first responder. And those courses came in handy. More often than not, the most dangerous thing on the street is alcohol poisoning or a heart attack. His first experience as a medical first responder was with a 17-year-old girl. He'd been kicking criminal ass for a couple of months then, and the most he'd done with victims was try and fail to comfort them. He's a pretty scary guy. Being stealthy comes at the cost of looking homeless. She'd been lying flat on her back under a closed restaurant's awning, breathing deeply with her hands folded over her chest. "Are you okay?" Aizawa had asked, leaning over her. Tear tracks stained her cheeks, and the girl shuddered. "I think I'm about to have a seizure." For the next minute and a half, she had a grand mal seizure. Aizawa had felt so utterly and humiliatingly helpless the most he could do was flip her on her side while she seized, shaking and foaming and twitching. He still remembers the way her eyes had looked up at him in those moments before her episode terrified, and then they'd rolled into the back of her head, and her eyelids started to flutter. "Oh fuck," says Aizawa, watching as Izuku's shoulders begin to arch and his muscles contract. "Oh fuck. The kid has seizures? Since when?" "Since a long time, apparently, and suddenly his earlier conversation makes sense." "Don't panic, please." "Bullshit, I'll panic all I want," and Aizawa is scrambling for a solution. Obviously, he'd felt the aura several minutes before and tried to console Aizawa about it. Who he thought was a normal cat, by the way. If seizures commonly occurred for him, was he epileptic? Fuck, did his mom know? Did she care? Did Izuku even have a diagnosis? And oh shit, Aizawa can't think anymore because the kid's back bows off the bed and foam starts to gather in the corners of his mouth. Aizawa goes silent when something bad happens. It's like his vocal cords get ripped from his throat, and the oxygen gets sucked straight from his lungs, and the only thing he can do is act. Acting is an out-of-body experience. Usually, he just lets his body take the wheel and deals with the problem without thinking his brain can catch up later. But right now, Aizawa is at an utter loss on what to do. He's a cat. A fucking cat. He's leaping up on the bed before he can process the white-hot pain that shoots up his leg, batting his paws at Izuku uselessly. Useless? He's so fucking useless, come on, how do I fix this? Aizawa. He's shaking and convulsing and… Aizawa. He pictures Hisashi in his head. The panic is stolen from his chest. Stay calm. Calm. He can do calm. And then every lesson and demonstration on treating seizures is flashing through his head, and Aizawa steels himself. What the hell is he doing, panicking like a newbie? He knows how to do this, knows that it will probably be okay. Maybe it was the heightened instincts, maybe his cat brain was lagging. Maybe it's because Aizawa has never watched anyone he cares about have an episode like this. Maybe because the kid reminds him so much of Oboro, so painfully much that their smiles seem to overlap in his dreams. Aizawa kicks into Eraserhead mode. The kid is already on his side, which is good because Aizawa isn't sure if he'd have been able to move him with cat arms. What he can do is use his little fangs to drag a pillow under his head. Izuku thrashes weakly. His arms keep tensing up and then twitching and falling, fingers spasming around air. What he can do is keep him from falling off the bed by placing himself at the edge like a barricade. What he can do is count. It's been 10 seconds since he started seizing? No, more like 20, he'd frozen up. 21, 22? Foam drips from Izuku's lips, running down his face in thick rivulets. The pillow under his head nearly goes flying, but Aizawa nudges it back under him gently. 31, 32, 33. Izuku starts to roll off his side, and he's quick to jump over his torso and support his back before it can fall. He makes an awful gurgling, choking sound like there's something stuck in his trachea, like he's just been stabbed in the lung. 36, 37. He shakes, makes a half-whine sound, jolts, shuddering and quaking and ᴜᴜᴛᴏ trembling. And he shivers and he tremors and his chest jumps and he rides and he rides and he rides and he twitches and he winces and he trembles. 124. 125. 126. 127. 128. 129. 130. 131. 132. 133. 130. And then he stops. And Izuku heaves a sigh. You're a weird fucking cat. Aizawa sits on Katsuki's desk, absent-mindedly swishing his tail. It's Tuesday afternoon, and after picking him up from another torturous 8 hours with Mr. Abe, Izuku made a detour to his friend's house. Thankfully, the cashier from the day previous was clocked in again, and she was watching reruns of Psych. Aizawa had been thankful to watch that for a couple hours, but at one point he snuck out of the convenience store to get a scope of the area. He couldn't stray too far with his leg, which he accidentally aggravated while helping Izuku with his seizure, which, by the way, -100 out of 10 experience. Do not recommend. Even after Izuku took his medicine and conked out in bed, safe and sound, Aizawa hadn't been able to sleep a wink. He'd stayed sat atop the kid's dresser, surveying the room and trying to wash away that feeling of guilt that rooted itself into his gut. No matter how many times he swallowed that lump in his throat, it would twist back up again, crawling up his windpipe like a vine, nasty tendrils coiling around his mind, forcing it to keep going back to that image of Izuku convulsing in his bed. After watching the window turn from dark blue, to orange, to pink, to light blue, Aizawa only felt a little better. Izuku was shaky at best while he got dressed for school, and if he had a human voice, he'd surely have scolded the kid for even thinking about going out after such a scary episode. Unfortunately, there wasn't much he could do except for express his concern via nose baps and frustrated wriggling. Abe watched over Aizawa for a solid 20 minutes at the convenience store, and then Yumi clocked into her shift and basically let him do whatever the fuck he wanted. When she noticed him slipping out the automatic doors at around 2:40 p.m., she just leveled him with a glare and said, "Be back by the time Greenie's done with school. I don't want a crying kid in the store." The girl seemed oddly in tune with how knowledgeable he was for a cat. It was probably the way that he actually watched TV that got her speaking so casually. Whatever it was, he was glad she wasn't trying to confine him to the store. Based on yesterday, Aizawa guesstimated he had 2 hours to gauge his surroundings. He spent a solid hour or so mapping outwards block by block and deciding on landmarks. Left at the broken streetlight led you to the kids' park, and right at the pink mailbox would eventually lead to the more densely populated city streets. At one point, while exploring a dead end to a cluster of duplexes, he even met another stray, a scruffy dog. Cat! The tiny thing barked at him, sat adamantly in the center of the street. His curve of a tail wagged. "These are my houses." "Sorry," Aizawa grumbled. He doubted the flat-faced, fuzzy thing actually owned all 4 of the duplexes he was so steadfastly guarding, but it wasn't any of his business. "Just passing through." The dog makes a low tone in his throat, and something about it makes Aizawa's lizard brain want to scramble. He trots the horizontal length of the road, pacing, snout trained on him and ears pointed forward with intrigue. "What brings you here?" "These are my houses, you know." "What brings you here?" "They're mine, you know." Aizawa watches him apprehensively. The great jumping of the alley cats was enough for him, and getting into an altercation with the dog was probably something he should avoid. The dog wasn't massive, but it stood a foot or so taller than him, bigger than any alley cat and with teeth twice as tenacious. He can almost picture the way his spine would snap in those narrow jaws, and then he'd be shaken limp with the ferocity to rip off a normal man's arm. He would be a little more intimidated if Scruffy Dog wasn't 3-legged. The unbalance in his haunches has him dipping and hopping every step. Plus, the thing seemed kind of harmless. "Yep. Yours," Aizawa agrees. "Can I leave?" Scruffy Dog makes the snout equivalent of a frown and lumbers closer. "What?" "But these are my houses." "Yes. They are." "And you're leaving?" He whines, tail winding down. "No, you can't just pass through, you know." Scruffy Dog takes a hop, a skip, and a jump in his direction, weightless as a bowling ball. Aizawa takes only a step and a half backwards, too wary to make a movement more sudden. "You can't. Cats are funniest, you know. Funniest and coolest and funniest." His manner of speech is odd, repetitive and loud, but Aizawa almost finds it endearing. He can't be much older than a puppy because his wiry body hasn't grown into its paws yet, and his eyes are wide as an owl's. Aizawa had yet to meet any canines before then, but he noticed that most different species had a lilt to their language. Rats had the Bostonian intonation of vowels and the English Cajun rhythm and consonants, and mostly spoke in New York Prohibition-era slang. Cats just sounded normal to him, and birds literally only sang. Everything they said had to be to some croon or choir. "Thank PHHLFFBDS." Aizawa's gratefulness is interrupted when a wet, warm muscle licks a stripe up the side of his face, flattening his fur in the wrong direction. "Okay, gross, never do that again." "Why?" "I'm Sketch," says Scruffy Dog Sketch, his tongue retreating back between his teeth. "Sketch is my name, you know." "You have to know, because these are my houses." "Your houses are amazing, Sketch, but I'm kind of on a time crunch here." "Go back to doing whatever you were doing," Aizawa says in his best authoritative voice, which is pretty damn good considering he's an educator. Apparently not good enough, because the dog just stares at him dumbly. "Time crunch? Time crunch? You have somewhere to be. That's so exciting, cat. Can I come? Can I come?" Aizawa isn't sure why Sketch has so suddenly changed his mind about him, but he's not going to look a gift horse in the mouth if it offers to not shred him into pieces. That said, he doesn't want this mutt following him. No? Please? Please? I'm an adventurer, you know. Nobody is going to steal my houses while I'm gone. Everyone knows they're mine, you know. I want to come. No. Please? And dash. Aizawa was accompanied by a frowsy stray for the last of his scouting. Sketch tagged alongside him, not questioning why he was dipping his head into alleys and scratching tallies into any wooden wall he could find, and instead yapping his ear off about this and that. He turned out to not be totally useless, because as they passed store windows he'd point out which regulars would feed you and which employees would chase you with a mop. Turns out, curly-haired Kaori always leaves out bits of salmon behind the tokoeki vendor, and Mrs. Sato will only shoo you away if you get too close to her pastry stand. When a rat poked its head from a gutter to spit at Aizawa, Sketch pulled back his lips to show off fierce rows of fangs and growled at it until it squeaked and scampered back into the sewer. By the time Aizawa's guesstimated time crunch was coming to an end, he'd profiled a solid chunk of the area and was confident that he could navigate himself for a mile or 3 before getting lost. Mission accomplished, he'd say. Once the sun began to dip under the slants of buildings, Aizawa had successfully made his way back to Abe's store. Sketch hobbled at his side for a while, but he caught sight of the setting sun and shouted something about "My houses! The houses! They need me, you know," before running, to the best of his abilities, back to his dead end of duplexes. He had to admit, even though the little thing was mangy and frankly a little terrifying, being able to hold an actual conversation had been a relief. Aizawa had been running on the fumes of Izuku's ramblings and one-sided questions, and though he's an introvert at heart, social isolation can only do so much for a guy when he's stranded in the middle of a city and incapable of human speech. Yuumi, organizing a shipment of different flavors of gum into a shelf, noticed him slinking through the convenience store door and smirked. "About time. Almost thought you ran off." "I would, but I have a kid to take care of," Aizawa sighed, hopping up onto the counter and pawing at his itchy nose. The scratch across his face was in the stage of healing where it was scarring over, but also unbearably itchy. "I met some dog. He didn't tear me to ribbons, so that's good, I guess." The girl grinned at him. "Meow meow, meow meow meow. Meow." Izuku ambled into the store 10 minutes later, the zipper on his coat sealed up to the very ends of the collar so that the kid's face was half hidden. As soon as he saw Aizawa, however, lazily draped across the counter, he hooked his chin over the collar and smiled warmly. "Hi, Benno." Yuumi didn't mention his outing, just waved and threw a granola bar at the kid's face. "On the house, Greenie. Little shit's good company." Izuku chuckled awkwardly and ducked out of the store, cheeks red with the flush that came with social anxiety. After that, Izuku avoided his usual route home and instead took a train to a familiar stop. Aizawa realized once they left the station that he was headed to that other kid's house. Katsuki? Yeah, that conversation from their last hangout still hung around in his head like a pop-up ad for Feet Finder. He totally and definitely did not spend an embarrassingly long time going through Izuku's desk drawers for any dangerous objects. He did find one, a pencil sharpener blade taken out of its casing that sent horror straight through his veins. But the drawer was covered in a thick layer of dust and clearly hadn't been touched in a long time. Good. Aizawa intended to keep it dusty. Mitsuki wasn't around to deliver any bone-crushing hugs this time around, but Masaru greeted Izuku at the door with a gentle smile and a hair ruffle. Katsuki led him up to his room after several attempts at a dap-up, and those are the events that led Aizawa to his current predicament. Yeah. Katsuki glares into his soul. Really fucking weird. Stop bullying Benno Kaken, Izuku chided from the beanbag chair. He'd settled there 10 minutes previous, legs pulled up and notebook sitting against his thighs. He wrote in bouts of brain dump between conversation with Katsuki. They'd been in a heated debate about which Age of All Might costumes was best. Katsuki turned his attention to Aizawa when he started to lose the debate. He doesn't understand you. You have to say his last name too, nerd. Katsuki pulled a face. It's like, if you say Michael, no one knows who you're talking about. You gotta say Michael Jackson. Oh, sorry. Izuku looked up from the pages of his book to shoot him a toothy grin. Don't bully Benno Verbich. Hee hee. What's he ever done to you? Katsuki shrugged. He looks at me weird. His room was as teenage as last time, and still the scent of burnt sugar clung to the air interminably. A fir-scented candle had been lit, and the earthy smell helped to balance out Aizawa's senses, though his eyes did not get the same treatment. Everywhere he looked, there were posters and random junk crawling in alternative culture. Katsuki returned his focus to Izuku. Anyway, You're a friggin' geek, so if I hypothetically were to be having drawbacks from my quirk. Kaken! You're asking me for help? Fuck no! I already have everything figured out. I'm just testing you since you're a shitty stalker. Okay, Kaken. Izuku smiled and flipped to a blank page in his notebook. What's up? Katsuki and Izuku proceeded to engage in a hypothetical analysis of his quirk. The kid could make explosions, apparently, but only from the palms of his hands. The breakdown was that he sweat a nitroglycerin-like substance and could ignite it in his hands, thus making them go boom boom. Now that Aizawa thinks about it, that's probably why the house always smells like caramel. Aizawa tuned them out as they chatted. He already felt like he was intruding just by being in the room, but it wasn't like he could do much. You might be asking, Aizawa, why don't you just tell Izuku that you're not a real cat and get him to bring you to a police station? That way, the officials could help find a cure, and since you know Izuku's full name, you could look him up in the people's database. Yeah, good idea. Except for 3 little hiccups. 1. If he's taken into police custody, then he won't be able to look over the kid. Who knows how long the quirk could last? What if he had to stay with the cops for months, and when he finally became human again Izuku was dead in a ditch somewhere? Okay, dead in a ditch is an exaggeration, but Aizawa has literally only known the kid for 4 days and he's already witnessed him go grand mal, get manipulated by his mother, and learn of a suicidal history. One could argue that Izuku had already endured this crap for years, but using that logic to abandon him felt unjust. Aizawa is a pro-hero, and he's dedicated himself to the rules that came with that title for almost 2 decades. The rule that Aizawa places above all others is to never let someone's suffering prolong. There aren't many things Aizawa can do with 4 paws and a tail, but he knows goddamn well that he can fight tooth and nail to keep Izuku safe. 2. Izuku would be downright, utterly and hopelessly horrified. If Aizawa had to go to anyone for help, it would not be the kid. He barely even trusted his childhood best friend. Finding out that the cat you basically spilled all your secrets to is actually a grown-ass man would probably not to do anything good. Even if said man is a pro-hero. Aizawa has done everything in his power to be the most polite, most respectful cat. Mostly. Still, the guilt of this situation being so creepy keeps him feeling awkward anyway. 3. Aizawa is injured. Running like a bat out of hell to the nearest police station would be completely on the table, if every step didn't make his hind leg twinge and the healing skin across his back pull. Aizawa glares daggers into a poster above Katsuki's closet door. The image is of 4 band members lined up in front of a brick wall, smiling. He feels as if they're mocking him. I'm gonna get some water, Izuku announces, standing from the beanbag. He sets his notebook down and starts to the door. Do you want something from downstairs, Kaken? Dr. Pepper. Katsuki pauses. And an apple. A red one. Gotcha. The curly-haired boy grins and saunters from the bedroom, leaving the door cracked a sliver behind him. The room descends into silence, just the crackling of candles and the spin of an overhead fan. Only once Izuku's footsteps stray far enough to be unheard does Katsuki whirl in his chair and glare daggers straight into Aizawa's soul. You! The boy snarls, pointing an accusatory finger at him. Aizawa deadpans. I don't fucking trust you. Good to know. Aizawa shifts his weight on his haunches. Is the kid delusional or is he smarter than he looks? He's not quite sure what to do in this situation. The two hold eye contact for a beat, Katsuki with his eyebrows furrowed and Aizawa with his eyes half-lidded. The silence reigns, and without asking it to, his tail begins to sway behind him. Finally, Katsuki makes a move and snatches a piece of paper from his desk. It's a homework sheet for science, and he flips it to the blank side and grabs a pencil. Aizawa watches him scrawl words into the paper like a madman. The only thing missing from the scene is a bag of potato chips. When he's finished, the kid throws the pencil like it's just offended him criminally, seizes the paper, and shoves it into his face. My name is Katsuki, I am blonde, I am the best, I'm better than you, you suck, testing, the sky is blue and so is the ocean, I am writing words, you stupid bitch. Okay? Aizawa's not quite sure what this means. Is it some code? Is he trying to trigger his sleeper agent or something? Katsuki drops the paper and scrambles back. You okay, kid? He frowns, watching his expression go from angry to shocked to angry again. I knew it. The boy explodes. Literally. Tiny flashes of light ignite in his palms, snap, crackle, pop, before fizzing out into rivulets of smoke. It seems to be subconscious, because he wipes his hands on his jeans until they stop popping like firecrackers. I fucking knew it. You can fucking read. Oh, so that's what he was doing. It's smart, Aizawa will give him that. Katsuki had been watching his eyes scan the paper. When a person reads, their eyes jump from word to word, left to right, and then jump starting back to left when a new line begins. Cats, as it turns out, can't make sense of human symbols, and tend to not do that. Give me one good reason not to punt your scraggly ass into a fucking incinerator. He seethes, fingers twitching as he resists the urge to straight up throttle Aizawa. I'm incapable of human speech, Aizawa reminds Katsuki, unsure if the message will even be understood, but the boy just grumbles something under his breath and slides the same sheet of paper he'd used to trick Aizawa towards him. Katsuki throws a pencil at him. Right. I know you can. Not seeing a way out of this, Aizawa stares at the pencil resignedly. It takes him a while to figure out how he's supposed to handle the utensil. He tries to use his mouth, but without support at the end of the stick the pencil keeps wobbling out of whack. He eventually finds an uncomfortable ultimatum. Digging his sharp teeth into the end of the stick, he uses both of his paws to stabilize and guide the tip of the pencil across the paper. I won't hurt. No tell. Is all he writes because his jaw starts to hurt. The handwriting is shaky at best and hieroglyphics at worst. Yeah, and I don't believe you, Katsuki retorts, snarling. Aizawa sighs and bites the pencil again. Protect Izuku, no choice. You expect me to actually believe you're some sort of guardian angel? God, this is so fucked up. What the fuck? Ag. No. Temporary. Won't hurt, promise. Katsuki buries his head in his hands, disgruntled. It's reasonable, Aizawa thinks, and he agrees. Everything about this is fucked up. For all the kid knew, he was a weird old perv trying to creep on his best friend. Or a quirked cat plotting against humanity. Mostly, he just wishes he could be fucking human. He wishes he could grab Izuku and haul his ass to the police station with him and sort the situation out, bing bada boom. But maybe something good can come from this. Katsuki's clearly not done interrogating, but before he can start yelling and cussing, Aizawa bites down on the pencil harder than before. Email yamadahisashi12@gmail.com and tell him that Aizawa is safe. Aizawa shakes off the sheen of snow that has begun to cling to his fur. The coat he wears as a cat is surprisingly insulating only the thinned-out areas of his face, and limbs are cold. He supposes this might be because Izuku has him bundled up inside his bag, but he doesn't like to acknowledge his coddling much. If he thinks on it too often, he might vomit. Fog moves bloodlessly among the streets, dark and serene with nightfall. The shine of the moon and stars is hidden behind thick, low-hanging clouds. Aizawa watches them move, chaperoned across the sky by a strong wind. A wind that grows stronger with every tick of the clock, that whispers forebodingly. Izuku trots to his apartment, having just gotten off the train from Katsuki's. The blonde-haired kid had read his note with furrowed brows and an agape jaw. Before he could say anything, however, Izuku returned to his room with their snacks. The rest of the visit consisted of Katsuki sending subtle glares in Aizawa's direction and making underhanded, random comments of, "Would be real weird if a stranger was listening in on us," towards Izuku. When it was time for Izuku to leave, Katsuki eyed Aizawa straight in his soul, took a chomp of his apple, and said, "If you lay a finger on him, I'll put donkey semen in your mouthwash, shank you with craft scissors until you look like Swiss cheese, shove your corpse into an incinerator, and dump the ashes into a pile of cow shit." What was that, Kakin? Nothing. Get home safe. From what Aizawa could gather, the kid had some vague idea of the danger that Izuku was in, He might not know the full extent, but he knew enough. Subtle prods and tight-lipped frowns made that obvious. That vague idea, planted and growing in Katsuki's head, was what saved Aizawa from immediate death. Protect Izuku. He'd written on the note, and he doesn't forget the way the kid shrunk into himself, canines digging into the flesh of his lip. Doesn't forget the last look he threw Aizawa as he and Izuku walked out of the house. It was a look of determination and tilted chins, of, "Keep your word. Protect him when I can't." Katsuki cared for Izuku deeply. Much more deeply than he let on, and that Aizawa approved of. So chilly. Izuku's teeth chatter. He rubs friction into his arms under the sleeves of his coat. He doesn't have the pleasure of a furry outer layer. He steps off the sidewalk to make room for a late-night jogger and her dog, and hops back up once they've passed. "Isn't it Benno Verbich?" "Just Benno. Please God, just Benno." Izuku hums. "Yeah, it is a pretty long name. I don't know why Kaken likes it so much." Aizawa wonders, not for the first time in the last 5 minutes, when this god-awful quirk will wear off. He hasn't yet pondered if he'll be stuck as a cat forever, but the idea of it makes him recoil and refuses to even try grasping at hopelessness. For as long as his name is Aizawa Shouta, he will not be hopeless. He hopes that Katsuki will take his last note to heart. If he did email Hisashi, it was likely that the man wouldn't spare a millisecond to track his address and tear into him like a lion to an antelope. Aizawa would only feel a little bad. He's sure that the kid would explain. The whole talking cat thing seemed out of whack, but it was a lead, and Aizawa knows that his husband will track a lead to the ends of the earth, and then to the sun until his skin melts off his bones from the heat. From there, Aizawa will have the PD at his knees via Hisashi, who will bring hell otherwise, and if he tells them to put Izuku under protection, they'll have to take his furry tale that seriously. Perfect plan. Flawless, really? Foolproof, unless Katsuki doesn't cooperate. But what are the chances of that? Ha. It's then that an idea strikes Aizawa. Another brilliant, amazing idea in the form of a light bulb above his head and a sound effect reading. Ding! Because Izuku rounds the corner of a police station, about to walk past it. No officer will believe a cat if it tells them that a random kid is in danger, but if the kid himself tells them? And this light bulb is what prompts Aizawa to leap from the safety of Izuku's messenger bag and block off the sidewalk. Aizawa is, somehow, going to convince Izuku to tell the police about his mother. And then, once he's under police protection, he'll be able to communicate to someone else his situation. It's a long shot and he knows. Speaking up about abuse is not as easy as it sounds, not as easy as forming the sounds into words on your tongue. It's not as easy as blurting, "I'm a victim," and being believed immediately. He knows this, but his name is Aizawa Shouta, and he has hope. Benno, what on earth? Izuku frowns, blinking. Aizawa ignores the shock of pain from his leg when he landed. "What are you doing?" "This way." Aizawa starts to walk towards the police station, hoping that Izuku will get the message and follow, but the kid just stands there confused, grasping the straps of his bag. "Izuku. This way." Izuku blinks again, more rapidly, and Aizawa has to force the memory of his focal seizures from his head. The kid's not having another one, thankfully, but he is holding back tears. Are you leaving?" "That's not." Okay." Izuku takes a step back, plastering on a shaky smile. "Yeah. You look healed enough. Do you recognize the station? Why, your owner works there?" "Should have figured." Okay, goodbye I guess." "No, you idiot." Aizawa sighs. His message came across wrong, so he limps back to him and circles his legs a few times, bumping into his shins. "Come with me." Izuku scratches his cheek, bewildered at Aizawa's sudden behavior. Do cats just do this? Does Benno want something? He was fine earlier. Aizawa nips at the kid's ankle. "Ow!" Izuku yelps, more of instinct than of pain. He barely bit hard enough to leave a dent. He doesn't do anything else though, and Aizawa musters all of the annoyance he can into his body language, glaring up at him. What? You're going to the police, he explains, head-butting Izuku's legs until they stumble in the direction of the building. He still doesn't make a move to walk anywhere, muttering exclamations and puzzled questions, so Aizawa does a multitude of things. Uses his claws to drag his pant leg in the direction of the station, bats at the backs of his knees, and yowls at him restlessly several steps ahead. Am I supposed to follow you? Izuku stumbles again when Aizawa headbutts him. Stop that! Benno! I can't just walk into a police station. What if your owner isn't even there? It's late. Less talking, more following, he hollers, trotting towards the building and casting exaggerated glances back. Izuku gets the message finally, albeit with a very baffled expression, and starts to trail along. He's hesitant and curls in on himself, eyeing the station like it's offended him personally. I can't believe I'm doing this, he mutters, digging crescent shapes into the meat of his palms with his nails. Benno, why am I doing this? What if your owner thinks I stole you and tries to arrest me? That's not how it works, and I don't have an owner. Before Izuku can panic out, Aizawa uses his shoulder to push open the double doors. Izuku squeaks unceremoniously the second a warm blast of air hits his skin, recoiling as if it's just slapped him in the face. The door isn't heavy, so Aizawa holds it open with his body while waiting for him to come to his senses. Come on, kiddo. His voice is as deadpan as his soul. Get in here. Izuku opens his mouth to say something, but he can only manage a noise when a set of footsteps draws into earshot. His eyes widen comically, and he grasps at his coat like a lifeline, knuckles white. You'd think the kid was witnessing the beginning of WW5 by the look on his face. The source of his horror is a stout officer with an unshaven chin and a buzz of brown hair. The officer, young and carrying a stack of papers, sees the kid standing open-mouthed in the door like a shock victim and takes a moment to recover from befuddlement. Then he notices Aizawa holding the door open, stone-faced and limping, and takes 3 moments. Buzzcut officer says, eyebrows shooting up his forehead. You need something, kid? Well, it's a little late for you to be out in this area. He sets his papers on the front desk to cross his arms, which isn't being manned by anyone due to the late hour. You and your cat okay? Izuku takes an embarrassingly long time to collect himself, and nods so fast his head might fall off. Yes. And maybe? Is something wrong? No. Yes. No. Everything all right over here? And then another officer rounds the corner, a woman much older and who holds herself with more authority. She brushes imaginary dust off her shoulders and analyzes the scene. Aizawa tracks the movement of her eyes from the door to Izuku to him, and knows that she's experienced. Good. Hello, ma'am. Izuku waves shyly, but his hands tremble and Aizawa tries not to visibly wince. I am sorry to bother you, My cat led me here? Older officer, with blonde hair pulled into a messy braid, shifts from one foot to the other. Your cat led you here. Well, he's not really my cat. But, I think maybe he... Is there anyone who works here missing a cat? I thought he was a stray, I dunno, Izuku's grin is forced and shaky. Tachibana, continue what you were doing. She waves her hand dismissively at Buzzcut officer, and he's quick to nod and pick up his papers from the desk. He sends Izuku a nod and a small smile and scurries off into the station, leaving the 3 of them alone, Izuku, Aizawa, and Officer Lady. Her expression visibly softens once he's gone. Hey kid! Everything doing okay? Izuku, who still stands just outside the open door, tenses. He looks her up and down, grasping at the hem of his coat, and then he nods, much slower and less enthusiastic than before. Yeah. I'm okay. The cat really did lead me here. You think his owner is an officer? It's nice of you to take care of a stray, honey. She slouches, and Aizawa knows it's intentional to make herself look less threatening. I'm sure I can ask around. Why are you outside so late? I'm going home, Izuku says honestly yet defensively. He catches the defensive tone just as it slips from his mouth, and tenses as if the woman will scold him. When she doesn't, he pulls at his fingers nervously. Honest. I was visiting a friend. I believe you. Do you want to come inside? It's snowing, the woman points out, taking a subtle step back to give Izuku more room if he decides to enter. The snow is much more visible in the face of the light that spills from the station, little motes of ice that glow white and that burrow in the strands of Izuku's hair. He shakes his head, shoulders drawing back subconsciously. No. It's okay. All right. Officer Lady doesn't take offense. Aizawa decidedly likes her. Do you want to come back tomorrow? I'll see if anyone's missing any cats. It's no biggie. Oh, okay. Izuku nods. He shuffles, nervous and still confused. Okay. Thanks. Come on, Benno. Aizawa doesn't move an inch, not even when Officer Lady and Izuku both focus their attention on him. He feels the woman's eyes on him, on his injured leg and his wide, unblinking eyes, but he keeps his gaze locked straight onto Izuku's. Izuku stares back, equally unblinking, even when the wind blows stray ringlets into his face. The expression he makes while locking eyes with Aizawa is subtle. So subtle he almost misses it, but he doesn't miss it, and he notices the little wrinkle between his eyebrows and the little tug of his lip, the slight narrow of his eyelids, the meager way his fingers curl and the scrunch of fabric as a result, the feeble glint in a wide, scared, little boy's eyes. Aizawa has no way of knowing what thoughts run through Izuku's head. No way of knowing how the gears in his brain click and grind against each other. It's a small thing, just like that look on his face. Aizawa decides to channel an expression, too, as much of one as he can with a mouth of tiny, sharp teeth and wrinkles hidden by thick fur. It's insignificant in hindsight, when he gathers pure encouragement into his glare. When he drags up the most vulnerable, hopeful look from the depths of his being and forces it into a spark in his slitted eyes. It's a small thing to hope. Tell her, is what Aizawa's eyes say. What he prays they say. I'm right here. With you. Izuku's own eyes widen in response. Maybe the gears behind them slow to a crawl. Maybe they halt like the rear of a horse, or maybe they work in overdrive, click click click, he's not sure. Anything else you want to tell me, kid? Officer Lady's voice is soft as the snowfall. I'm right here. Izuku stills. It's not a slow, eventual stop, nor is it an abrupt, spastic stop. It's just a stop. A still. The tiny expression that said a million words and one falls away. It doesn't break or slip. It just stops. His mouth is the only thing that moves. He's a portrait surrounded by the glowing specks of ice. Aizawa doesn't know anything about Izuku. Not really. Good night, ma'am. Izuku doesn't stutter as he turns tail into the night. Into the lifeless, dense fog. Aizawa chases after him and lets the police station's door slam closed. Izuku knows, rationally, he should have said something. The woman looked so kind. Kinder than his mother had ever looked, looking at him. Kinder than his mother had ever looked at him. He thinks it's the eyes. Mama could smile all she wanted to, wobbly, drunk smiles. Manic, hysterical smiles. Sweet, apologetic smiles. But her eyes would never change. Mama's eyes always brimmed with something akin to hatred. Izuku doesn't think it's actually hatred in there. Mama doesn't hate him, doesn't hate anyone. She never hated Hisashi when he left, nor did she hate her boss when he fired her. Of course Mama doesn't hate Izuku. But her eyes share a kinship, he knows, with burning, fiery, and cruel animosity. When she looks at him, they share the same emerald eyes, he and Mama. Auntie Mitsuki used to harp about it all the time. The exact same shade, she said. The same little glimmer, and specks of blue in the middle. Mama's emerald blue speckled eyes filled with loathing whenever turned on him. She doesn't loathe him. He knows. He knows. He thinks. She loathes his quirklessness, and his muttering, and the pitiful look on his face. But all of that is Izuku's fault. He hates those things, too. Mama's eyes don't fill with loathe when turned on Izuku. They only look like that because he's a failure. A failure of a son. Of a human? Of a son. Mama loves him when he doesn't make mistakes. Izuku loves himself when he doesn't make mistakes. Except, he always makes mistakes. Like, constantly. He supposes it's just the cards life dealt. The sky is blue, the earth warms with every passing year, and Izuku is an utter and total loser. And logically, rationally, reasonably, he knows that mothers should never hit their children. But it's fine. Izuku isn't most children. Mama isn't most mothers. And logically, and rationally, reasonably even, he knows that he should have said something to the nice officer lady. Should have tried to get him and Mama the help they needed. He envisions a vague, faraway future, one where he doesn't have to illegally buy the drugs to stave off seizures, and where Mama has the money to get therapy, and where he doesn't have to scavenge for warm, fitting clothes. The nice officer lady could have helped. She had good eyes. Good, understanding, kind eyes. Eyes that Mama never used. Except then, nice officer lady would figure it out. The little hurdle. She'd eventually realize that he was a quirkless, mentally sick, useless, dysfunctional, good-for-nothing Deku. And then Mama would punch him in the face for trying to dirty her name, probably. The house is alive when Aizawa and Izuku arrive. It's not living, of course. The walls don't have eyeballs and the cupboards don't use opening-closing squeaks to imitate vocal lilts. The air is full of unseeable, microscopic alive thingies, sure, but it doesn't breathe. Aizawa thinks it seems to. It's on instinct that he tucks his entire body into Izuku's messenger bag like a freaking coward, hiding his tail and beady little eyes from sight. He peers into the dark apartment from the slim, thin peephole between the bag's flap and its pouch. It's a limited field of view, but from it he can see the light. The light from the television screen dances across hardwood floors. Reflections of people and scenes flicker among stained popcorn walls and planks in desperate need of a Swiffer. Inko sits on the couch, elbows on her knees and hunched forwards. Her face is angled at the screen, but her eyes are unseeing. They don't flit from actor to actor. Aizawa finds her incredibly creepy. Izuku makes a quiet shushing noise and pats the satchel's flap down. He toes off his shoes in the jenkin, quiet as a church mouse, and stalks to the hallway. Izuku? It's criminal, the snap of Inko's neck as her head whirls in the direction of a floorboard creak. Hi, Mama, Izuku says. His voice doesn't sound nervous. Aizawa's not sure how his gears spin and click, but he knows that the kid's a good liar. Izuku baby. She stands, knees knocking. Wobbling from exhaustion or something else. She looks ill, malnourished and weak. Strands of her long hair cling to her face with the stick of sweat, a sickly sheen of it glowing in the face of the television. Her hands tremble. Where? At Kaken's, Mama. Izuku approaches her. Hesitantly, the footsteps say, his fox walk across the floor. The house isn't alive, but it feels like it wants to eat Aizawa up. Gobble him down like a Thanksgiving turkey and then burp him into nothingness. The house isn't alive, but Aizawa feels its lungs contract and expand and its heart pulse unsteadily. Izuku, baby! Inko drags Izuku to the floor. He begins to yelp, but she cups his face in her hand and then tears begin to stream down her face. Crocodile, pearlescent, genuine tears. Aizawa lay limp on his side, wishing he could leap from his confines and scare her off with a hiss. Baby. And Mama? Izuku says. She shoves his face into her collarbone and sobs.